The first sequence this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101, Leaving Barrier 113. While Wang Fuge and the others were talking, they suddenly heard a commotion in the market town. Wang Fuge walked out of the school curiously. What's going on? In an instant, he felt something was wrong. The sky gradually became gloomy. The haze in the sky did not turn from white to black, but gradually turned into a strange dark yellow, and the wind became stronger. The refugees in the market town came to the street with their valuables. Some people carefully supported the frames of their shacks to prevent the wind from blowing them down. At this time, someone ran into the town and shouted, "The volcano in Jingshan seems to have erupted, and the whole sky above Jingshan is full of smoke." The manager of the town glared at him and said, "Why are you panicking? The volcano in Jingshan has nothing to do with us. We are still far away from Jingshan. Where did you come back from?" "I came back from the mine," the man said. "The factory director asked me to report the matter in Jingshan to our barrier. I am the safety officer of our mine." "Okay, do what you should do," the manager of the town said unhappily. "Everyone else should pay attention and go back to the shack after the earthquake." But Yan Liwen always felt something was wrong after hearing this, because all the birds in the sky flew south, and all the insects in the soil crawled out. How could a volcano so far away have such a great power? Yan Liwen felt that there was something more terrifying behind. There was a river passing through the middle of barrier number 113, but no one had ever studied the source of this river and where it finally flowed. The bigwigs in the fortress laid several iron nets in the river to prevent refugees from sneaking into the fortress. There were refugees who did this before. However, the people in the fortress were also panicking because of the earthquake, but no one noticed that the guardrail in the river was broken by something underwater. The strange thing swam all the way to the city. The fish in the river were disturbed and fled to the other side, as if it was an instinctive fear. At this time, many people suddenly ran in from outside the town. Everyone was wondering, "Aren't you from the mine? Why are you all back?" The people who came back shouted, "The mine has collapsed, and many strange insects have run out from Jingshan. There is a human face on the shell of the insect. They will eat people." Everyone was stunned. There was once an insect plague in this world, but it was soon exterminated by humans. It's just that this generation has only heard of the insect plague, but has never seen it with their own eyes. Is history going to repeat itself? Suddenly, Yan Liwen heard someone jumping into the yard behind him. He turned around and was surprised to see Ren Xiaosu signaling them not to speak. Ren Xiaosu lowered his voice and said, "Pack your things. Quick." Although Yan Liwen and Sister Xiaoyu didn't know what happened, they did whatever Ren Xiaosu said. Yan Liwen judged that something must have happened, so Ren Xiaosu had to take them away from the 113 barrier. Is this the place where they have lived for many years? Are they finally leaving? But Yan Liwen didn't care much. Wherever Ren Xiaosu is, that's home. It's just that Ren Xiaosu came back too suddenly. Joy and urgency swirled in his heart. When Wang Fuge returned to the school, he saw Ren Xiaosu holding a gun in his hand, pointing it at him. Ren Xiaosu said, "Old Wang, you stay here until we leave." "I'm sorry." Wang Fuge smiled bitterly. "Are you going to leave? There are so many people outside watching this yard. Maybe you can go in and out easily, but what about Yan Liwen and Li Xiaoyu? They can't stop me," Ren Xiaosu said. After he came back, he did not rush to the school, but first went to see the place where the gun was buried. The gun was gone. He went to the cave he had prepared before, but Yan Liwen had not been to the cave, so he finally returned to the market town. Before he even got to the school, he found someone watching outside the school from a distance, and several of them gave him a sense of déjà vu, combat personnel from the Qing Consortium. It is easy to distinguish between private troops and consortium troops. The people in the private troops look like soldiers, standing and sitting in a dignified manner. However, the soldiers of the Qing Consortium have straight backs, and it is obvious that they have been trained in normal times. It was because of these people who were watching that Ren Xiaosu chose to sneak into the school secretly. Now that the market town has become chaotic, it is a good opportunity for him to take Yan Liwen and Sister Xiaoyu away. Wang Fuge asked curiously, "In fact, with Mr. Zhang here, the Qing family should not do anything to you, right?" Ren Xiaosu was stunned for a moment. "Mr. Zhang. At this time, Ren Xiaosu realized that Zhang Jinglan was not in the school. He didn't know what had happened in the school before. But there was no time to say so much at this moment. Ren Xiaosu said, I am not leaving because of the Qing Consortium, but because those demons and monsters in Jingshan are coming out. When Ren Xiaosu crossed a canyon, he heard the sound of wild beasts galloping behind him. I am afraid that all the wild beasts, experimental subjects, and human-faced insects in Jingshan will be forced to migrate south by the Sea of Fire. At that time, it will not only be him who is in danger, but the people in the whole market town will be in danger. But Ren Xiaosu did not have time to explain too much. He said to Wang Fuge, you also heard them mention that bug. There are a lot of bugs and it is scary, but the bugs are only a small part of the danger. Wang Fuge was stunned. What on earth did you encounter in Jingshan? No, Ren Xiaosu, you must let me go. I want to go back and take my son with you. Go with us. Ren Xiaosu was puzzled. Your family business is all here, you are going with me. He had never considered the possibility that Wang Fuge would go with him. According to normal thinking, even if Ren Xiaosu persuaded Wang Fuge to go with him, Wang Fuge would not be willing to believe what Ren Xiaosu said. The result is now exactly the opposite. Ren Xiaosu did not persuade Wang Fuge at all. Instead, Wang Fuge made a decision in an instant. Wang Fuge thought for a while and said, I don't know about other things, but I know that I can survive by following you. When Luo Zhenai Yang Ziajan went out of the barrier for the first time, Wang Fuge said that no one can be a guide in Jingshan, and only Ren Xiaosu can take you there. Of course, this is not to say that Lao Wang thinks Ren Xiaosu is so powerful, but he thinks Ren Xiaosu is lucky enough. A child who can survive the wolf's mouth and raise another child together is not something that ordinary people can do. Now Wang Fuge has a very clear understanding, only Ren Xiaosu knows what happened in Jingshan. This is a person who has personally experienced the changes in Jingshan. If he doesn't trust him, who else can he trust? Chapter 102 Dead Love. If Ren Xiaosu went to the market town now and shouted, wolves are coming, the experimental subjects are coming, the monster in the volcano might come too, and the human-faced worm is coming too. Maybe half of the people in the market town would look at Ren Xiaosu as if he were a fool, and the other half would be skeptical. But Wang Fuge was different. He thought that if you don't even believe the person who experienced it personally, who else can you believe? Ren Xiaosu looked at Wang Fuge deeply, and he suddenly understood why this old Wang could live safely until now. It can be said that Wang Fuge didn't have much ability, and he was not very good. He was just smooth and knew how to behave in front of the big shots in the barrier, but this was not enough for him to live so long. In the past, some market town gentry who had better relationships with the big shots in the barrier were also killed. It must be said that Wang Fuge probably has a peculiar survival instinct that allows him to make the most correct choice quickly in the face of danger. Wang Fuge said solemnly, maybe others don't believe you, but I believe you, I want to follow you. To be honest, Ren Xiaosu was also thinking, can he take Wang Fuge with him to escape? On this road to escape, ordinary people will become a burden to Ren Xiaosu. But Wang Fuge is different. Although this old Wang is still a businessman in essence, he has already shown enough goodwill to him and Yan Luden. Wang Fuge, a shrewd profiteer, seemed to see Ren Xiaosu's doubts. He said, I am not following you for nothing. First of all, I have money and medicine. Secondly, I am better at dealing with people than you. I am not a useless waste. At this juncture, Wang Fuge immediately showed his value. Only if you are valuable, others will be willing to take you with you. He did not expect to rely on the previous friendship to convince Ren Xiaosu. He felt that friendship was worthless these days. Ren Xiaosu thought for a while and said, I don't miss your money, go and come back quickly. Ren Xiaosu is not a kind man and a believer. If it were someone else, he would definitely not let the other party leave at this time. What if the other party informed the Qing Consortium? But the kindness Wang Fuge had shown to Ren Xiaosu made Ren Xiaosu decide to trust Wang Fuge once. Besides, the Qing group probably didn't have time to target Ren Xiaosu now, and the people stalking outside were not enough. Yan Lewin and Sister Xiaoi quickly packed up the things they were going to take away. Yan Lewin handed Ren Xiaosu a copper coin and said, Mr. Zhang said that if you are desperate, you can go to Sabai to find him, but if you are not desperate, don't go. Sabai is very hard. Ren Xiaosu looked at the copper coin and suddenly asked, what happened before? Yan Liwen told him everything that happened that night, including Luo Lan's attitude towards Zhang Jinglin and some of the things Zhang Jinglin said. He finally said, Uncle Fuga was the only one who dared to stand up and help us that night. Okay, I understand, Ren Xiaosu asked again, did Mr. Zhang say who he was? No, Yan Liwen shook his head, I don't know who he is. He didn't tell me when I asked, but he must be a big shot in Fortress number 178. Well, Ren Xiaosu said, if we are desperate, we will go to Sabai to find him. Sister Xiaoyu said, everything has been packed. In fact, we don't need to take much. Ren Xiaosu took a look and found that Sister Xiaoyu and Yan Liwen basically took food. They even pulled out the cabbage that Zhang Jinglin had originally planted in the backyard of the school. This is very similar to him, both very simple. You should take steamed buns and cornbread, Ren Xiaosu said, but don't take cabbage. You can pick wild vegetables to eat on the way to escape. Hey, what's in that bag? Smoked pork, Sister Xiaoyu said, you didn't bring any dry food when you left before. I thought I would get some smoked pork that is easy to store so that you can take it with you when you go out next time. Well, Ren Xiaosu is silent for a moment. Thank you, Sister Xiaoyu, it's just in time for this time. Brother, Yan Liwen looked up at Ren Xiaosu, is it really dangerous this time? The people in the barrier can rely on the barrier, but the people in the market town are simply vulnerable in front of those creatures, and there is not even a place to hide, Ren Xiaosu said. In fact, the best way now is to open the barrier and let everyone in, but I don't think the people in the barrier will do that. Then let's wait for Uncle Fugi to come back and go southwest, that's the 109 barrier, Yan Liwen said. Ren Xiaosu looked at Yan Liwen and smiled, your face looks pretty delicate after wiping it clean, just like someone in the barrier. Yan Liwen smiled foolishly. The two brothers have always had dark faces, but some time ago when Yan Liwen had a fever, Sister Xiaoyu wiped Yan Liwen's face clean. Suddenly, the market town began to be completely noisy, but this time it was not the sound of people watching the excitement, but countless people crying and shouting for help. The whole market town was in chaos. Ren Xiaosu strode out of the main gate of the school. When the soldiers who were on the lookout outside saw Ren Xiaosu, they were ready to draw their guns. What happened in the market town attracted their attention, so they didn't expect Ren Xiaosu to come out. But before they could draw their guns, Ren Xiaosu had already taken the initiative. He walked out while shooting. None of the stalkers could escape. They all died under the gun. At this time, Wang Fuga was running to the school with his stupid son Wang Dalan. When he saw Ren Xiaosu kill 6 or 7 people so easily, he was shocked on the spot. Although Ren Xiaosu was cruel before, he was not so cruel. It seems that after Ren Xiaosu went to Jingshan, he has changed a little. Ren Xiaosu turned to look at Wang Fuga, who was almost frightened by Ren Xiaosu's cold eyes, but when Ren Xiaosu found out that the person coming was Wang Fuga, he put down his gun and said, let's go to the 109th barrier. Wait, Wang Dalan suddenly said, can we take Li Yaoqian with us? Ren Xiaosu thought seriously, who is Li Yaoqian? It's the strong girl from the old Li family, Yan Liwen added. I won't take her with me, Ren Xiaosu shook his head and said. Wang Dalan was anxious, you are a substitute teacher in this school, how can you abandon your student? If Mr. Zhang were here, he would definitely not abandon her. Ren Xiaosu looked at Wang Fuga and sighed, your son's anxious look is very much like love. Don't mention it, they are quite a match. Wang Fuga was shocked, what time is it and you still have time to talk about this? Then Ren Xiaosu turned to Wang Dalan and said, it's a pity that I'm not Mr. Zhang. Wang Dalan was heartbroken after hearing this. He didn't expect his love to end so suddenly. Updated in advance today, will be available on the shelves at midnight on June 1st, the explosive drafts are ready, waiting for that day. Chapter 103 The wall really collapsed. The refugees in the north of the market town were already in a mess. Before leaving with Wang Fuga, Ren Xiaosu jumped onto a roof and looked north. He was shocked to see a black tide of insects in the north sweeping across the entire market town. In that scene, the market town seemed to be suddenly dyed by a basin of ink. The originally colorful market town was gradually covered by a black tide of insects. The beasts were running farther away. Ren Xiaosu did not see the wolves and the experimental subjects. He was afraid that the human-faced worms were the first wave of creatures to arrive in the market town. However, Ren Xiaosu felt that it would not take too long before a greater crisis might come. The refugees fled to the gate of the barrier. They cried and begged under the city wall for the barrier to open the door and save them. "Hurry up and open the door. Please open the door and save us. Can't you see those bugs? Please, just let my child in." The refugees under the city wall all knelt down, but the private army guards on the city wall only symbolically used automatic rifles to shoot at the places where the bugs were densely packed, but they never meant to open the door to let people in. Moreover, their bullets were just a drop in the bucket for the bugs. Seeing that the bugs were about to come, and the gate of the barrier was always closed, some refugees began to curse, but they had to leave quickly after a few words of cursing, otherwise the bugs would arrive. Ren Xiaosu never had any expectations for others, so his first reaction was not to negotiate with the barrier, but to leave immediately. He couldn't care so much about the lives of others, he could only take care of Yan Liwen and the others first. At first, Ren Xiaosu was worried that Wang Fuge was carrying a lot of cumbersome items, but he found that Wang Fuge and Wang Dalin only carried one backpack each. Although Wang Dalin was a little sturdy, he was very strong and could carry things without any hesitation. At one point, Ren Xiaosu even felt that Wang Dalin was some kind of supernatural person with power. Ren Xiaosu opened the backpack on Wang Dalin's back and saw that it was full of compressed biscuits circulated in the barrier, while Wang Fuge himself was carrying some medicines. The packaging boxes of those medicines were removed and stored in some plastic bottles for easy carrying. As Ren Xiaosu led them to flee southwest along the rampart, he asked Wang Fuge curiously, "I thought you would carry some gold or something. I want to carry it, but I can't. If I run out of energy, I'll die." Wang Fuge said with a bitter face, "I still have a lot of money in my bag, but it's all issued by Qing's bank. If I want to exchange it for Li's banknotes at the 109th rampart, I'm afraid I'll be charged 20%. Wang Fuge was running out of breath. He lacked exercise, so he was the most tired when he was running for his life. Ren Xiaosu glanced at him and said, "Don't cry. The medicine you carried is valuable. These thousands of anti-inflammatory pills cost 200 yuan each. And there is another point. Money is useless on the road of escape, but medicine is useful." Zhang Jinglin once said that gold is a hard currency, but he also forgot to mention a hard currency, that is, medicine. In fact, Wang Fuge has made the smartest choice now. Horizontal ellipsis. Not all the refugees in the market town were foolish enough to go to the city wall to call for help. Some people knew from the beginning that the bigwigs in the fortress did not care about the refugees' lives, so they simply fled to the wilderness. When Ren Xiaosu and his companions left, they could only hear the wailing of the refugees behind them and the sound of gunfire on the city wall. Not long after, more intense roars sounded. Ren Xiaosu looked back and saw from a distance that the private soldiers on the city wall actually began to throw grenades and bombs under the wall. There were still many living people below. The relatively smarter refugees were running madly to the wilderness. Some people accidentally fell down, and they didn't dare to stay on the ground for a second. Ren Xiaosu and his companions were not the only ones fleeing to the southwest. There were also hundreds of people traveling with him. Because Yan Liwen, Xiaoyuji and the others could not run too fast, Ren Xiaosu could only take them and mix in with a large group of hundreds of people. Fortunately, all the luggage was carried by Ren Xiaosu, so Yan Liwen and Xiaoyuji were relatively relaxed. After running for a while, they found that the human-faced worms were not chasing them, so they gradually slowed down. At this time, except for Ren Xiaosu, everyone was exhausted. Some people looked back and saw that the original market town had become a purgatory, and all the shacks were burning. "The home is gone," someone murmured. Some people who had just lost their relatives couldn't help crying. Ren Xiaosu just saw with his own eyes that some people even abandoned their young children in order to run faster. But some people protected their children tightly before they died, and eventually both died in the mouths of human-faced worms. The patterns on the carapaces of those human-faced worms seemed to be brighter and wider. The chewing sounds they made when eating might be a nightmare that many people would never forget. At this time, because their group left early, they had already walked to a relatively safe area. Those human-faced worms seemed to be more interested in the barrier, so they did not chase the humans who fled to the wilderness. Ren Xiaosu suddenly felt that the barrier should help the fleeing humans attract a lot of attention. After all, for wild beasts and human-faced worms, there was more food there. When the time comes, the army of the Qing Consortium will join the battle and use the munitions and heavy weapons they have stored in the barrier. It should not be a problem to rely on the barrier to stop the beasts and monsters. If it were not for avoiding the Qing Consortium, Ren Xiaosu would probably decide to stay in the wilderness for a while, and wait for the Qing Consortium to clean up these monsters, and then he would bring Yan Liwen and Sister Xiaoyu back. But now, he must stay away from the area controlled by the Qing Consortium. However, at this moment, Ren Xiaosu frowned and looked down at the earth, and everyone felt it, another earthquake. This earthquake was more violent than any previous one, and some people even fell to the ground unexpectedly. Look what that is. Someone pointed to the north. There was a huge black line that was spreading rapidly to the south. The black line came from the direction of Jingshan, and then pierced into the barrier like a knife. The round and majestic wall made a sound like an iceberg collapsing, and even the solid wall began to show fine cracks from bottom to top. Ren Xiaosu was so shocked by the scene that he could not speak. The crack did not form an abyss, but instead forcibly divided the barrier into two semicircles, and the ground on the west side suddenly rose by more than 10 meters. It was as if someone had suddenly raised a step on the entire plain. The two crystal plates squeezed and collided here, destroying more than half of the barrier wall in just a moment. The wall really collapsed. Chapter 104 The Real Disaster. Ren Xiaosu once talked about a topic with Yan Liwen when they were chatting. What would happen if the wall protecting humanity collapsed? At that time, Ren Xiaosu himself did not take it seriously. After all, if the wall collapsed, it would just be rebuilt. The big shots in the fortress would still be big shots, and the refugees in the market town would still be refugees. But now it is different. The wall can collapse at any time, not at this time, because there are wolves outside the wall, wild beasts and poisonous insects running out of Jingshan, human-faced insects, and experimental subjects. The earthquake caused by the crystal plates is like a black swan suddenly flapping its wings, and then it brings disaster to the barrier. This barrier is like being in the middle of two crystal plates. When the two crystal plates move violently, it will be torn apart immediately. But the disasters brought by the earthquake are more than that. The houses in the barrier also began to collapse, and countless living people were buried under the buildings. Ren Xiaosu looked down at everything from afar on the hillside. The wall that had protected the barrier for decades or even hundreds of years was like a disintegrating glacier. The wall collapsed piece by piece and eventually turned into ruins. This was probably the most shocking and crazy scene Ren Xiaosu had ever seen in his life. The private army guards on the wall had not had time to withdraw before they fell to the ground with the wall and were smashed to pieces. You have to know that the wall is about 50 meters high. Any normal human falling from it would be dead. The tide of human-faced insects that could not break through the wall at this moment all poured into the barrier city. The big guys in the city had no time to wake up from the panic of the collapsed houses, and they had to face the man-eating insects immediately. Wang Fugia and the others all stopped and looked back at this scene, with deep fear in everyone's eyes. Xiaosu, can the people in the city still survive? Sister Xiaoyu murmured. Ren Xiaosu turned around and continued to walk towards the 109th barrier. It's enough that we can survive. In Ren Xiaosu's opinion, there must be some people in the barrier who can escape. A barrier city with a population of hundreds of thousands is not without smart people, and there are also troops from the Qing group in it. But these have nothing to do with him. In this era, people don't care about things that don't concern them. The big figures in the barrier didn't care about the lives of the refugees in the past, and no one will care about their lives now. Moreover, no one can take care of this disaster. Suddenly someone said, "Look, there seems to be some strange light in the barrier." The next moment Ren Xiaosu looked back, and he suddenly saw a huge bubble in the sky floating towards the human-faced worm. The bubble burst and pushed the worm tide back more than 10 meters, and some of the worms in the front seemed to be directly blown to death. Others may not know what it is, but Ren Xiaosu immediately thought of Zhang Baojin, who was caught in the barrier. This bubble was just a little bigger than the one he had seen, but its appearance and function were very similar. Ren Xiaosu was puzzled. It seemed that Zhang Baojin was not dead yet, and his ability had also increased. Superhuman. Someone exclaimed, "There is a superhuman in the barrier." What is this bubble? Ren Xiaosu looked at these exclaiming people and thought, "I said this is the saliva bubble that Zhang Baojin spit out. I am afraid you will not believe it." Wang Fuga's son Wang Dalin muttered, "I wish I was also a superhuman." Because of the barrier's arrest of superhumans, everyone avoided the word superhuman, fearing that they would have anything to do with these three words. But honestly, Who doesn't want to have such a superhuman ability? Even Wang Fuge, who has entered middle age, has fantasized about it. This is the ultimate desire of mankind for the world. However, superhumans are rare. Now it seems that there are only a dozen or so among hundreds of thousands of people. Ren Xiaosu knew that there must be superhumans hidden in the barrier, but the number must not be too many. How can I become a superhuman? Wang Dalin looked at his father Wang Fuge curiously. Wang Fuge was speechless. I don't know either. Yan Liwen said casually, maybe some conditions are needed, such as luck, or bloodline or something like that. Wang Dalin became depressed. Then my father is not a superhuman either. Yan Liwen comforted him, don't be too desperate, maybe he is not your biological father. Wang Dalin, who had not cried even when his love died on the way to escape, burst into tears. Ren Xiaosu, you two brothers are too mean, Wang Fuge almost cursed. Then Zhang Baojin is also a superhuman. Do you think his father has any superhuman bloodline? At this time, because Zhang Baojin spit out 4 or 5 bubbles in a row to drive away the insect tide, many people got a chance to breathe. They saw the opportunity and fled directly to the outside of the barrier. The direction of their escape was exactly where Ren Xiaosu and the others were. When the walls of the fortress collapsed, the broken walls formed a huge roadblock. It was not easy for the people inside to get out. But fortunately there happened to be a gap in the direction of Ren Xiaosu and his team, enough for several people to pass through at the same time. When in danger, everyone will have a blind herd mentality. Those in the disaster have lost the ability to think normally, and can only run where others run. One person ran towards the gap, and the other survivors followed him. Slowly, the number of escapees accumulated like a snowball. Wang Fuge only made a rough estimate. There might be thousands of people fleeing, and the number is still increasing. We can't wait any longer. The human-faced worms might not be willing to let go of so much food, and the wolf packs would not be willing to do the same. The chaotic gunshots were getting weaker and weaker. Ren Xiaosu originally thought that the combat troops of the Qing group could play a big role, but he didn't know why. He didn't see the combat brigade go into battle. Maybe the military camp was far away? Slowly, some people in the fortress wanted to jump into the river to avoid the human-faced worms. According to common sense, worms are usually afraid of water. However, just as someone jumped in, something suddenly opened its bloody mouth under the turbid water and swallowed the person who jumped in. Then a thick blood color appeared in the turbid water. The whole fortress city was filled with smoke and blood. Ren Xiaosu had never seen such a cruel scene, and even he felt it was cruel. He frowned and said, "Hurry up. Those who escaped may also attract danger." Many refugees around were too tired to walk. They didn't feel it when they ran out of the market town to escape, but when they stopped, their muscles ached. You have to know that the physical energy consumed when running at full speed is far more than jogging. Wang Fuge, Wang Dalin, Yan Liwen, and Sister Xiaoyu did not have such good physical fitness as Ren Xiaosu, but when Ren Xiaosu said that he wanted to keep going, none of the 4 people said a word of no. At this moment, only Ren Xiaosu could survive. Xiaoyu and the others gritted their teeth and followed Ren Xiaosu. Ren Xiaosu whispered, "After strenuous exercise, a large amount of lactic acid will begin to accumulate in the body. You must continue to move forward, otherwise it will be even more painful if you rest for a while." The other refugees saw Ren Xiaosu and the others leave. Some of them followed, but some thought that the human-faced insects didn't pay any attention to this place, so they didn't need to rush. It's not that they won't leave, they just want to wait a few minutes. No matter what time, there is no shortage of people who take chances. Suddenly, Xiaoyu and Yan Liwen found that among all the people present, only Ren Xiaosu looked relaxed, as if he was not tired at all. Thanks to the loyal servants Wang Ke and Yan Shibao for becoming the new allies of this book. Chapter 105 The Wolf is Coming. Some people were lucky enough to think that the human-faced worms would not chase them, but Ren Xiaosu knew that the real danger in this disaster might not be the human-faced worms. You know, whether it was the experimental subject or the terrifying monster in the volcano, Ren Xiaosu had to run away when he saw them. There were about 400 people who continued to flee to the 109th barrier. All of them were refugees from the market town. Ren Xiaosu and Sister Xiaoyu mixed in with these people but never communicated with others. Many people recognized Ren Xiaosu, Yan Liwen and others, but at this time everyone was just trying to escape, and no one thought too much. Is there a factory on the way to the 109th barrier? Someone suddenly remembered this. Yes, there is a sand field there, and I worked there before, a young man said. How many people are there in the factory? About 200 or so. The sand field is usually dug by machines, so not too many people are needed. But they have vegetable gardens over there. Can we find something to eat there at night? Someone asked. Everyone was a little hungry after escaping for a while. Now that the barrier is gone, can we go back to the pig farm and kill some pigs for food? A man said, no one cares about it anyway. I don't know if all the women in the barrier are so pretty, someone echoed. I've seen Luo Zinayu, she's very pretty, and now the people in the barrier are in trouble. Ren Xiaosu glanced at them. These people probably felt that they were no longer in danger, so they were a little relieved. As for the dead, they didn't feel very heavy. Most of the refugees in the market town were heartless. On weekdays, everyone was on guard against each other and didn't cheat others, so they didn't feel sad when other people died. And the death of a big man in the barrier didn't make them sad, and they even felt a little gloating in their hearts. Only a few who had just lost their loved ones would look very depressed at this time. A small half of the more than 400 people were women. They looked at the men around them vigilantly. Some women had just lost their men, and they knew too well what dangers a woman would face at this time. Xiaosu, should we take a rest in that sand and gravel field? Sister Xiaoyu asked worriedly. No, Ren Xiaosu shook his head, we must stay away from them when we rest at night. First of all, when danger comes, we must focus on the largest group of people. Secondly, these people may also become new dangers. Sister Xiaoyu was relieved. Well, we brought food, so we don't have to worry too much about food. I know these people in the market town too well. They can do anything. Well, of course, there is no need to worry too much. They are just a mob. Ren Xiaosu nodded, and he looked at Yan Luoyun. Hide the gun. Ren Xiaosu fired a gun when he killed the stalker in the market town. Even though the market town was in chaos at the time, many people must have noticed it. He was not worried that this mob would attack a few people on his side in front of him, but he still had to be careful of what they might do behind his back. The people on the battlefield may not know what happened in the market town. They should have only felt a strong earthquake, but they don't know that the barrier is gone, Ren Xiaosu said. The center of the earthquake was in Jingshan Mountain, radiating hundreds of kilometers outward from Jingshan Mountain. Ren Xiaosu was thinking, if barrier number 113 was shaking like this, then has barrier number 112 collapsed? After all, barrier number 113 and barrier number 112 are about the same distance from Jingshan Mountain. The escaping team arrived at the gravel field in the afternoon, but the factory buildings and workers' dormitories here also collapsed. A large group of workers from the gravel field were driving excavators to dig up the ruins of the factory buildings. The workers at the gravel field were a little puzzled when they saw such a large group of people coming, but when they heard the bad news that the barriers had been broken, they didn't know what to do at that time. Even the barriers were gone, so what gravel field were they going to rebuild? Most people sat on the ground. They really couldn't walk anymore, so they planned to rest for a night at the gravel field. There was food here. Some people wanted to follow Ren Xiaosu, but when they saw that most people stayed, they didn't continue to follow. After all, it was safer to stay with a large group. Now this group of people, including the workers in the gravel field, has more than 600 people. Ren Xiaosu ignored them, but took a look at the sky and continued to move forward with Yan Luoyun. Now there are probably 2 or 3 hours before dark, enough for them to go further. Wang Dalin complained on the road, can't we take a break? Before Ren Xiaosu could say anything, Wang Fuga slapped Wang Dalin on the back of the head. Just leave when I told you to. Why are you talking nonsense? Wang Fuga smiled at Ren Xiaosu. Children are ignorant, don't mind it. It's okay. Ren Xiaosu shook his head. He must remember the friendship between Wang Fuga and Yan Luoyun, so he would not take Wang Dalin's complaints to heart. No matter how rude Wang Dalin was, Ren Xiaosu would take Wang Fuga to barrier number 109. Ren Xiaosu thought for a moment and added, we'll walk for a while and then find a place to rest, but each of you must carefully massage and relax your muscles before you can rest thoroughly. Otherwise, none of you will be able to continue on your journey tomorrow, and you won't be able to escape if you encounter danger. This was Ren Xiaosu's experience of living in the wilderness for many years. At this time, the people who had been traveling with Ren Xiaosu sat on the ground and watched Ren Xiaosu and the others go away. Someone laughed and said, Isn't Ren Xiaosu afraid of exhausting those around him to death? Wang Fuge looks very smart, and he usually has a high status in the market town, but now he's following behind a few little brats. Someone said disdainfully. At first I saw he was walking so fast, so I followed him, thinking there would be some danger behind him, but now there's nothing behind him. Wang Fuge must have a lot of money on him. A man with a gloomy expression whispered. He has run a grocery store in the market town for so many years, and he must have all his belongings on him after he escaped. And that Li Xiaoyu. Don't think about it, someone sneered. Ren Xiaosu and Yan Liwen both have guns, don't you know that? What are you afraid of? There are so many of us. Someone was unconvinced. So many people, are you afraid of a gun? He only has a few bullets. Oh, then you go first. No one said anything after this. Although Ren Xiaosu had limited bullets, they only had one life. Whoever rushed forward first would die first. Ren Xiaosu's evaluation of them was absolutely correct. A mob. Someone waved his hand and said, don't say it's useless. Let's rest here for one night and continue to set off tomorrow. However, when night fell, they suddenly heard a wolf howl rising to the sky in the distance. All the people sitting on the ground stood up immediately and looked in the direction of the wolf howl with fear on their faces. They knew how terrifying the wolf pack was, but they didn't expect that the wolf pack would come here. Judging from the sound, the wolf pack was only 3 or 5 kilometers away from them. Run, run, I didn't expect there would be danger. I should have followed Ren Xiaosu earlier, damn it. The group of people suddenly felt a little regretful, but when they stood up and prepared to run for their lives, they found that their legs were as heavy as if they were filled with lead. Their whole bodies were sore. Chapter 106 Engine Roar. Before the wolves came, almost everyone thought that Ren Xiaosu was too cautious. He had already escaped from danger, so why did he insist on moving forward? But when the wolves came, they finally understood how Ren Xiaosu survived in the wilderness for so many years. Run. If you don't want to die, run quickly, don't fall behind. At this time, most people stood up and ran towards Ren Xiaosu. They finally remembered the fear they had when they saw the human-faced worms before. It was less than a month since the last time the wolf pack destroyed a factory. The manager of the barrier had ordered the refugees to bury the bodies in the factory. Many refugees vomited when they saw the bloody scene in the factory that day. Even refugees like them who were used to seeing life and death couldn't stand that scene. There were thousands of bodies that the refugees cleaned out from the factory that day, but none of them were intact. They were all eaten by wolves. Ren Xiaosu had already left the market town at that time, so he didn't know about this, but the refugees' fear of the wolf pack had already formed a shadow. However, these refugees wanted to run faster now, but they couldn't run faster. In the distance, Ren Xiaosu was sitting by the campfire, adding firewood to the fire. They were so far away that they didn't hear the wolf howling at all. A small pot was placed on the campfire, bubbling with steam. Ren Xiaosu cut 2 pieces of the bacon that Sister Xiaoyu had smoked earlier and threw them in. The originally cooked porridge immediately gave off a meaty aroma. Wang Dalin was watching eagerly. Ren Xiaosu glanced at the others and said, don't just wait. Rub your muscles now. We have to continue our journey tomorrow. It smells so good, Yan Liwen sniffed. I just saw wild coriander on the side of the road. It will smell even better if I tear it up and throw it in later, Ren Xiaosu said with a smile. The coriander sold in the market town on weekdays is small seedlings, tender, but in fact coriander can grow to more than half a person's height. Even when it grows up, many people can't recognize it as coriander. Coriander? Wang Dalin was stunned for a moment and pouted, I don't eat cilantro, don't eat cilantro. Ren Xiaosu was stunned for a moment, it's such a fragrant thing, why not eat it? Don't you think cilantro smells like stink bugs? It makes you want to vomit when you smell it, Wang Dalin said, how can you eat it? Ren Xiaosu glanced at the cilantro in his hand and thought, maybe it's because we have never eaten stink bugs. Wang Dalin, I haven't eaten it either, okay. Wang Fuge served Wang Dalin a small bowl of porridge in a bad mood, and then said to Ren Xiaosu, just put cilantro in it, how can it not disgust my precious son? Ren Xiaosu chuckled twice, but he found that the porridge Wang Fuge served Wang Dalin was too little, and he deliberately didn't serve a piece of bacon, leaving the bacon to others. Old Wang, Ren Xiaosu said seriously, I am very grateful that you stood up for Yan Liwen and the others that night. In the past, you took care of me when I sold prey. I remembered it in my heart, so there is no need to be restrained when we escape together." As he said that, Ren Xiaosu took Wang Dalin's small iron bowl and added some porridge to it, and also put a piece of bacon for Wang Dalin. Sister Xiaoi brought a few iron bowls. In this early winter season, everyone held the iron bowls, waiting for the porridge to cool down while warming their hands. Ren Xiaosu often sold sparrows to old Wang, and he often threatened Wang Fuge to raise the price by selling to old Li's grocery store. But in fact, Ren Xiaosu went to old Li's grocery store later and saw that old Li also bought sparrows for 900 yuan, but Wang Fuge sometimes gave him 1,200 yuan. Every time winter was approaching, Wang Fuge would buy sparrows for a few hundred yuan higher, and those few hundred yuan were usually the price of a cotton jacket. Sometimes Ren Xiaosu thought that even in this era, there would always be people who were shining, like charcoal fire in the snow. Wang Fuge looked at the bacon in Wang Dalin's bowl and sighed, "I was right about you two brothers." Although Ren Xiaosu and Yan Liwen were very irritating, Wang Fuge knew very well that the two brothers valued feelings. "Don't worry, Uncle Fuge," Yan Liwen said with a smile, "when we get to the 109th fortress, we will help you set up the grocery store again. Why mention the past when you have to flee to the ends of the earth?" Wang Fuge waved his hand and smiled. In fact, Wang Fuge was more open-minded than Ren Xiaosu imagined. It seemed that he was not particularly attached to his family business in the 113th fortress. However, at this moment, Ren Xiaosu and the others heard footsteps coming from afar. It seemed that there were hundreds of people running towards them. Ren Xiaosu pulled out his pistol and looked at the others. "Hurry up and finish your porridge." Yan Liwen and the others didn't care whether it was hot or not. They immediately drank the porridge in one breath according to Ren Xiaosu's instructions. Fortunately, the porridge had been left to dry for a while, otherwise everyone's mouths would be scalded and blistered. Ren Xiaosu frowned at the hundreds of people running over. "No, these people are running for their lives, let's hurry up and leave too." At first, Ren Xiaosu was a little curious. Why did this group of rabble suddenly set off again? Did they say they wanted to rest for a night in the gravel field? But he immediately figured it out. The only thing that could make this group of people set off again was danger. Ren Xiaosu and his team were also quick and decisive. Before the group of people approached, they had already started to run. The rabble behind them had sore waists and legs and didn't eat, but they massaged it for a long time and drank hot porridge. Although they were all running for their lives, their states were completely different. And at the moment of real crisis, Ren Xiaosu carried everyone's luggage on his back, and the others were relatively relaxed. Suddenly, Ren Xiaosu looked back and saw a faraway hillside behind him. The Silver Wolf King he had seen before was looking down at the people fleeing in the wilderness, as if quietly looking at his prey. Wolves are used to following the prey. They will wait until the prey is exhausted before launching the final attack. If the mob around him kept running in fear, it would not be long before they would completely lose the strength to escape. At that time, it would be the time for the wolves to hunt. Ren Xiaosu frowned. "We have to stay away from these people. Although it sounds bad to let them take the blame for us, we have no choice." Wang Fuge said quickly, "It's good to use others to take the blame." But as soon as he finished speaking, Ren Xiaosu suddenly heard the sound of a car engine behind him. He was stunned for a moment. How could there be a car here? The engine sound was very abrupt in the wilderness, like the roar of a wild beast. Then Ren Xiaosu suddenly realized that these were people who escaped from the barrier. It seems that the direction in which those people in the barrier fled was also this side, but it was unknown how many people escaped. Chapter 107 Remarks on the release. Half a year after the completion of Da Wang Spare My Life, I came back to continue writing. Is it because of diligence? No, it's to earn money for my son's milk powder. On the day of the book's launch, I couldn't think of a good introduction. After all, I've always been a jerk with introductions, so I decided to be willful. Everyone, I'm the talking elbow, and I'm back. Fortunately, you still buy it. It seems that my personality charm is still as good as before. The chapter of the previous sentence said that it is foreseeable that more than 99 pieces of Da Wang Spare My Life has won too many honors, so at such a young age, I have to bear great pressure that I shouldn't have to bear at my age. Before the book was launched, someone said, "Will Elbow's next book still be popular?" Not necessarily, maybe it's just a flash in the pan. However, tonight, I will be slapped in the face by reality. If the results are not used to slap in the face, it will be meaningless. So, please support and subscribe, so that I can feel less pressure. Okay, now that I have finished my business, let's talk a little. I thought a lot when I was preparing for the first sequence. I also said in a post on Zhihu a few days ago that an author's desire to talk is actually limited. It is the depression and frustration accumulated over many years in life, or the dreams and love of dozens of spring and autumn. Sometimes I worry that one day I will have nothing to say, and that would be a complete failure. Before I started writing the book, many people advised me not to write about wasteland themes. There are a series of reasons, which are basically related to money. But I thought about it for a long time and finally thought that there is a big difference between I want to write and I can write. The story I want to write must first move myself before I can move you. Many people have discovered that in fact, at the moment of thanking 7 times, the first sequence has just begun. There are also many people who have been asking what the first sequence is. This will be the theme throughout the whole book, and it will be different at each stage. Maybe at the moment of the end, I will give the final definition in my heart. That's right, Yan Liwen is Hai Yingying. Hai Yingying is a woman, but Yan Liwen is really a man. After the first series is finished, I will revise the player. There is no money to be made from this, but I still want to make it perfect. The next book will be about esports. If writing the player is for my first dream, then this esports book is my second dream. At the end of the story, I have to give myself an explanation. Of course, due to copyright issues, I definitely cannot write about existing games. I still have to rebuild the worldview, and there are some more interesting skills and so on. I guess it will still be a bit too serious. This series of answer-style remarks makes it seem like someone is interviewing me. Let's get back to the point. I used to think that writing depends on talent, and I have an extraordinary talent. Later I found that writing is a hard and tiring job, and being able to keep updating depends entirely on perseverance, and I have outstanding perseverance. But in fact, during the serialization of The Great King Spare My Life, the most painful thing for me was that I couldn't stop updating. At that time, I wanted to stop and sort out the plot many times, but in the end I didn't have the courage, which left a lot of regrets. So, in the later period of the first sequence, I may take a short break. Of course, I am definitely not like some authors who change to monthly updates once they stop. It should be a break of 1 or 2 days. I am a principled author. Actually, what I want to say most is thank you. Thank you for being here when I come back. It will be on the shelves at midnight tonight, and I will update it again. See you there. Chapter 108: A Drop of Water. When those off-road vehicles and Qing's consortium troop transport trucks appeared in the field of vision, Ren Xiaosu suddenly thought that maybe the wolves were not in a hurry to hunt now, and it was also because of these people. Ren Xiaosu was too familiar with the Qing's consortium logo on those cars. Didn't he see it a few days ago? There was a white ginkgo leaf logo on the black body. According to Mr. Zhang from the school, the world has undergone hundreds of millions of years of changes, but among all the plants in the world, only the ginkgo tree has maintained its original appearance after being covered by the Quaternary glaciers. This is one of the oldest tree species and one of the tree species with the strongest genes. When Ren Xiaosu saw the Qing's consortium logo in Jingshan, he thought that maybe the Qing's consortium used the ginkgo leaf as a logo to imply permanence and long-term. Those vehicles roared over, but when they got closer, Ren Xiaosu suddenly felt that the number of these cars was a bit small, so small that he didn't even need to count them. He could be sure that the convoy was only 3 off-road vehicles and 2 troop transport trucks. Did Su Xianchu say that the Qing Consortium's combat brigade in the rampart had a staff of 4,500 people? Why did only so few people come out? A truck can only hold 50 people at most, so only more than 100 people escaped in total? What happened? In fact, Ren Xiaosu underestimated the horror of this disaster. Because there were relatively few brick and stone houses in the market town, Ren Xiaosu could not imagine how serious the consequences of the collapse of brick and stone houses or even high-rise buildings would be. The ramparts were almost all brick and stone houses. Perhaps this can be regarded as poverty limiting Ren Xiaosu's imagination. In this earthquake, even the earth was about to crack, the ramparts were split in 2, and the river passing through the ramparts was turned into a waterfall. This is the power of nature, and humans cannot resist it. After the brick and stone houses in the ramparts collapsed, a large number of people were crushed to death in the buildings, and countless people were killed and injured, including the Qing Consortium. And the worst thing was that the barracks was right on that crack, and was forcibly split in half. Luo Lan was panting in the off-road vehicle. The most embarrassing thing was that he only had a pair of flowered shorts on his legs. He was still sleeping when the earthquake happened. Fortunately, the barracks he lived in were extremely sturdy and the floors were low, so he was still alive. It was winter, and there was heating in the barracks and off-road vehicles, but not on the wilderness. At this moment, Luo Lan was most worried about what to do if the car ran out of gas before reaching the 109th barrier. At that time, he would have to get off the car and walk to the 109th barrier. Thinking of this, Luo Lan said, "How much gas is left in the car?" The soldier driving the car said, "There is still 1/3, which can drive about 130 kilometers. Can it drive to the 109th barrier?" Luo Lan asked. The soldier said in embarrassment, "We are about 210 kilometers away from the 109th barrier. The oil is definitely not enough. In fact, we can let the people in the off-road vehicle behind us go to the truck, so that we can transfer the oil from that car to our car." Huh? Luo Lan's eyes lit up, but then he sighed. "Forget it, the off-road vehicle is full of wounded, and the truck is full." The soldier was silent for a while and said, "Sir, you and Chief Qingzhen are very good to us. Unlike other big shots in the consortium, we don't mind suffering a little." "Okay, don't mention it anymore." Luo Lan waved his hand irritably. "You talk as if I'm a good person, but I'm not a good person. Good people don't live long, you know." "Sir, there is a group of people running in front," said the soldier. He had already seen the fleeing refugees. Luo Lan said disdainfully, "There is also a group of people running behind us. How rare is it? Overtake them and let them eat dust." The refugees envied the vehicles speeding by. It would be great if they had such a car. There are actually cars at the sand and gravel pit, but they happen to have been moved to other places because of transporting sand, and the remaining ones are basically heavy excavators, which cannot drive fast and consume a lot of fuel. At this time, a man suddenly rushed out from the refugees. "Boss Luo, I'm Wang Yan, the director of the gravel yard. Please take me with you. I've met you before." Luo Lan's driver asked, "Do you want to take him with you? I can't even fit the wounded, let alone take a fart." Luo Lan cursed, "Ignore him." Wang Yang saw the convoy getting farther and farther away. He was so angry that he wanted to chase after him and kill the fat man Luo with a gun in his hand. But on the one hand, he really didn't have the courage and could only think about it. On the other hand, he couldn't catch up. Ren Xiaosu looked at the convoy coming from afar. He explained to Wang Fuge and others, "I estimate that many people in the barrier are fleeing in this direction. Don't worry too much. There will naturally be many people to track the firepower of the wild beasts for us. If a small number of wild beasts attack us, I will deal with it." Wang Fuge is a shrewd man. He heard an inexplicable confidence in Ren Xiaosu's words. Ren Xiaosu should be very clear about the danger behind them, but Ren Xiaosu was not afraid. Wang Fuge wondered if Ren Xiaosu was also a transcendent. Otherwise, so many people went to Jingshan, but only Ren Xiaosu came back? And did Ren Xiaosu kill people in Jingshan? Otherwise, why didn't Ren Xiaosu even blink when he killed people in front of the school? "That Xiaosu, I don't know if it's appropriate to ask." Wang Fuge hesitated and asked, "What is there in Jingshan? Where are the others?" "There were 21 people when we went there." Ren Xiaosu thought for a while and said, "There should be only 4 alive now. These 4 are Su Xianshu, Yang Xiajin, Ren Xiaosu, and Luo Zinayu. As for what is in Jingshan, I can't say clearly. There are man-eating insects and human experimental subjects with degraded IQ." Ren Xiaosu sighed, "But this is not the most terrifying thing. The monster with claws stretched out from the crater has always been a shadow in Ren Xiaosu's heart, because the monster is too huge and lives in magma." At this time, the Qing group's motorcade had already passed by Ren Xiaosu and his group. Ren Xiaosu saw the fat man inside through the car window. He wondered if this was the legendary boss Luo who gave him the banner of rejuvenation. "Anyway, this time it's really thanks to you." Wang Fuge sighed beside him. "If you hadn't brought us out in time, Daling and I might not have been able to get out. I don't know how to thank you." At this time, Ren Xiaosu looked at Wang Fuge seriously and said, "A drop of water should be repaid with a spring." Wang Fuge. "Shouldn't everyone be polite to each other or something?" Exclamation mark. But Ren Xiaosu didn't say anything else. He found a high slope and wanted to look far behind to see how many people had escaped. "Let's find a place to rest in the leeward direction," Ren Xiaosu said. "The main force behind us seems to have several thousand people. We are safe for the time being. Besides, if you don't rest, you may collapse." The moon was already high in the sky. Everyone had been running since morning and was indeed on the verge of collapse. Ren Xiaosu thought they should return to the crowd and use the several thousand people as their cover. A few hundred people might still be attacked by wolves, but if there were several thousand people, even the wolves would have to think twice, right? If they encountered danger at that time, he only needed to lead Yan Luan and the others to run faster than the several thousand people. It might be a bit cruel to think this way, but I'm afraid everyone else thought so too. Moreover, if they followed this group of people to Barrier 109, would it be possible to pretend to be someone in Barrier 113 and follow them into Barrier 109? I don't know if Barrier 109 would allow them to go in. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109, Infiltrating the Barrier. The night was getting darker. Since Ren Xiaosu had the intention of sneaking into barrier number 109 by taking advantage of the situation, he started to think crookedly about this. He called everyone together and whispered, "Do you think it's feasible for us to sneak into barrier number 109 by mixing in with those people in the barrier?" "No," Wang Fuga shook his head and said, "People in the barrier use identity documents, and we don't have them." "Can I just say that I lost it when I was fleeing?" Ren Xiaosu asked curiously. It's normal to lose it after fleeing for more than 100 kilometers and encountering such a big disaster. Wang Fuga said, "It's hard to say, because information between barriers is not shared. You said you were from barrier number 113, but they couldn't verify it. In the past, you needed letters to travel to and from the barriers, and you could only pass with the official seal of the barrier manager, but now barrier number 113 is gone, and the previous manager of barrier number 113, Lao Liu, is said to have been exiled to Sabai by the Qing group, and no one knows who is in charge of the official seal." Ren Xiaosu smacked his lips. Maybe if he hadn't gone to Sabai, he would have died in the barrier. In life, you never know what will happen. "You make it sound like the Qing group saved him," Wang Fuga said speechlessly. "But if you want to sneak into barrier 109, you have to consider some other factors. For example, there are more than 600 refugees here, and they will recognize you. And what if barrier 109 is unwilling to let anyone in? Then the bigwigs of barrier 113 will become refugees, not to mention us." "That's very likely," Ren Xiaosu said. "Barrier 109 is likely not to let anyone in. There is no precedent for this. No barrier has ever collapsed directly before, so Ren Xiaosu and his group have no example to refer to. They can only take it one step at a time. Being able to enter the barrier is of course a good thing. If they can't enter the barrier, Ren Xiaosu and his group can still live well. It was difficult for the big shots who escaped from the barrier. It was at least 100 kilometers away from barrier 109. They would be exhausted to death if they walked there. Then they finally reached barrier 109, but they were not allowed to enter. At that time, many people probably collapsed. Ren Xiaosu and others found a place to rest in the leeward. Even if Ren Xiaosu could bear it, Wang Fuga, Xiaoyuji and others could not bear it. When the group of refugees who escaped came over, they found that Ren Xiaosu and others did not move, so they were a little surprised. "Why don't you move?" Ren Xiaosu looked up at them and said, "I can't walk anymore." After saying that, Ren Xiaosu, who was sitting on the ground, lowered his head again to press his leg muscles. Seeing that Ren Xiaosu didn't want to pay attention to them, the refugees didn't say anything and continued to walk forward. "Are you really unable to walk or are you pretending to be unable to walk?" someone asked curiously when they walked away. "Can't you see him rubbing his legs? We even took a break, but they probably didn't, right? This is called being too clever for one's own good. I think he was too far away just now so he didn't hear the wolf's cry," someone sneered. "If he heard it, he would definitely run faster than us." The group of people whispered and left, and no one even planned to tell Ren Xiaosu that there were wolves behind them. However, Ren Xiaosu certainly knew that there would be wolves behind him, not only wolves, but also more terrifying experimental subjects. At this time, Ren Xiaosu waited until they walked away and whispered, "I have a bottle of water here, everyone take a cloth and wipe your face with water. The faces of those people in the fortress are clean, and our faces are too dark, they can recognize them at a glance. If you have slightly better clothes, change into them and dress like the people in the fortress." The refugees lack water, so the daily water quota is not exempted even for the gentry families like Wang Fuge. Ren Xiaosu took this bottle of water from the storage space of the palace. Even when he was collecting gold, Ren Xiaosu also stored 2 bottles of water in it, because clean water is too important in the wilderness. Of course, the water in this bottle was added later, and the previous water had been drunk long ago. The refugees were used to not washing their faces, but now if they wanted to blend into the crowd of the barrier, they had to disguise themselves better, otherwise if they really had a chance to blend into the 109 barrier, they would be exposed because of a little detail at this time, which would be bad. In fact, Ren Xiaosu had a chance to wash his face. After all, it was not particularly difficult for him to find water in the wilderness, but the black face was a kind of protection at that time. If Su Xianshu, Yang Xiaojun and others saw Ren Xiaosu who had wiped his face now, they might not recognize him without a careful look. His face before was also considered to be black to a certain extent. When the refugees passed by just now, Ren Xiaosu deliberately let Yan Liwen lower his head, because among them, only Yan Liwen's face was clean and easy to be remembered. Now that everyone has wiped their faces and changed their clothes to blend into the crowd at the barrier, many people may not recognize them. After all, there are thousands of people behind them, and it looks like a sea of people. A few people patted the dust off their bodies and wiped their faces a little cleaner. At this time, the large group of people who escaped from the barrier finally arrived here. As a result, Ren Xiaosu was stunned when he saw them. How come the faces of these people were even darker than his just now? Shit. I was careless. He habitually thought that the faces of the people at the barrier were all white, and Yan Liwen's face was still white all the way out, so he didn't realize that when others escaped, they were not as relaxed as Yan Liwen. I saw that the people in front of me were more embarrassed than each other, and their faces were as black as if they had just experienced a war. The dust raised by the collapsed houses during the earthquake was all on their faces, and when they sweated while running away, everyone's faces were dusty and black. At this moment, Ren Xiaosu and his friends had clean faces, as if they were the big shots in the fortress, and those in front of them were refugees. The first people in the fortress who arrived were stunned when they saw Ren Xiaosu and his friends, but no one said anything. At this time, everyone was running for their lives, so who cared if others had white faces? Sister Xiaoyu laughed beside them, and Ren Xiaosu said expressionlessly, "Ahem, let's paint our faces darker." It was a pity to waste half of his bottle of water, and Ren Xiaosu felt a little regretful. When a large group of people in the fortress passed by, Ren Xiaosu successfully mixed in with Yan Liwen and his friends in the crowd. At this time, everyone was in a state of hesitation and confusion, and no one noticed them. "We blend in among this group of people," Ren Xiaosu said in a low voice, "try to have as little contact with the refugees as possible." Wang Fuge said worriedly, "Will this really work? There must be refugees who can recognize us." "It's okay," Ren Xiaosu said indifferently, "this is just an attempt. Think about it, what if all the refugees are dead? Then no one will know our identities." Wang Fuge looked at Ren Xiaosu in shock. Is this possible? However, at this moment, there seemed to be a conflict in front of the fleeing crowd. Ren Xiaosu jumped up and took a look. It seemed that the refugees in front and the people in the barrier were arguing about something, and the director of the gravel field, Wang Yehun, was holding a gun against someone's forehead. Chapter 110. Thank myself again. Because of the noise, many people were attracted to see what was going on in front. Ren Xiaosu said to Yan Liwen, "Hide your gun and wait for me here. I'll go see what's going on." "Well," Yan Liwen nodded. Ren Xiaosu couldn't protect him all the time. He had to learn to protect himself and even everyone else. Ren Xiaosu squeezed forward. With his current physical fitness, no one could squeeze past him. He came to the front of the crowd and secretly looked ahead. He heard Wang Yiheng say viciously, "I told you to give me the food. Don't you understand what I'm saying?" "But I'm hungry too," said the middle-aged man with the glasses who was pointed at his head with a gun. His voice was full of tears, as if he had never seen such a fierce person in the barrier. The managers of various factories, such as Wang Yihan, are actually people in the barrier, but they have been out for a long time, and they always have a bit of the arrogance of the wilderness. They are imperial envoys sent by the barrier, and they have guns in their hands, so they are used to being arrogant. At this time, everyone entered a world without any order at all. They naturally became beasts. However, not long ago, this guy almost knelt down and begged Luolan to take him away. Wang Yang said to the people next to him, "Search him," and the two fat guys over there, their pockets are bulging. The people next to him were his workers in the gravel field. These workers usually listened to Wang Yihan's command. At this time, because Wang Yihan had a gun and promised to help them settle down at the 109th barrier, Wang Yihan became the backbone of these people. It's just that the refugees searched the bodies of the people in the barrier? How dare they? Wang Yihan saw that the people around him didn't move, so he said angrily, "Why, my words are useless, right? Now I have a gun and I have the final say. You can search without worry, they don't have guns." Ren Xiaosu got a message from this sentence: there should be gun control inside the barrier, so Wang Yihan was so sure that other people didn't have guns. He took a quick look and saw that the refugees had subconsciously stood on Wang Yihan's side. On the one hand, Wang Yihan was already very famous in the town, and on the other hand, Wang Yihan had a gun. At this time, a middle-aged man walked to the front of the crowd. "Wang Yihan, you'd better put down your gun. You can't be so arrogant here." "Director Ma." Wang Yihan seemed very surprised. "Why are you here?" Director Ma sneered. "Why, do you think we are all dead? Give me the gun." "Gun?" Wang Yihan subconsciously looked at the gun in his hand, as if he was making a decision, but he soon sneered and raised his hand to shoot at Director Ma. With a bang, Director Ma fell in a pool of blood without even a chance to react. He didn't expect Wang Yihan to shoot. Some people around screamed and wanted to retreat, but where could they retreat? Wang Yihan hesitated for a moment because he used to live under the management of Director Ma, but he quickly realized that now that barrier number 113 was gone, Director Ma was nothing. Wang Yihan said coldly, "Fortress 113 is gone. Everyone will start over at Fortress 109. I am not a person who kills innocent people indiscriminately, but if anyone disobeys my orders again, don't blame me for being rude. There must be high-ranking officials in the former fortress among the thousands of people who fled, but so what, they are nothing without Fortress 113. Ren Xiaosu retreated. When Wang Yihan killed people just now, the others didn't even dare to fart, so he estimated that Wang Yihan and the refugees would soon become more aggressive. But what does this have to do with him? It has nothing to do with him. As for the gun in Wang Yihan's hand, Ren Xiaosu really didn't take it seriously. Just the posture of Wang Yihan's shooting just now seemed very unprofessional to him. If Wang Yihan fired a few more shots in a row, the recoil might even shake the gun out of Wang Yihan's hand. On the way back to find Yan Luoyuan and the others, Ren Xiaosu suddenly saw a group of boys and girls wearing uniform blue and white clothes. He was stunned for a moment, because he saw the words Fortress Second Senior High School on the back of the clothes. Are these students? Ren Xiaosu heard Zhang Jinglin mention that there are dozens of schools in the barrier, divided into elementary schools, junior high schools, and high schools. Some even have universities in larger barriers. Zhang Jinglin said that teenagers like Ren Xiaosu can sit in bright and clean classrooms in the barrier to attend classes. There are many teachers to teach them basic knowledge. They don't have to go to the wilderness or work. The barrier will also provide some student subsidies. At that time, Ren Xiaosu was envious. How great would it be if he was born in the barrier? When Ren Xiaosu passed by these students, they glanced at him but didn't care. They didn't know how much Ren Xiaosu had longed for something that was within their reach. The students seemed to be frightened by the gunshots just now. At this time, a young woman next to them said, "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. If there is anything, the teacher will handle it. We have already escaped." Is this the teacher in the barrier? Ren Xiaosu glanced at the young female teacher. She was much prettier than Zhang Jinglin. If their school had such a teacher, even a kid like Wang Daling would probably study hard. In a flash, Ren Xiaosu saw so many students and suddenly remembered his second side quest. 1,000 thank you coins. Ren Xiaosu didn't even dare to think about it before. Where could he get so many thank you coins? When he heard about this side quest, his first reaction was to get them in the school. After all, He was able to complete the quest before, and a large part of the thank you coins came from those students. However, after the barrier was destroyed, the skull was gone, and he didn't think of how to get thank you coins for a while. Ren Xiaosu remembered that he had thanked himself 7 times when he killed the experimental subject. If he could thank himself, could he complete the quest alone? Now the black knife is quietly floating in a display cabinet in the palace. As long as he thinks about it, it will appear in his hand. To this day, Ren Xiaosu still can't forget the pleasure of splitting the experimental subject with one knife. Well, the primary level is so powerful. What will the next level of black knife look like after it is unlocked? After Ren Xiaosu returned to Yan Liwen and the others, he began to try quietly. Yan Liwen looked at Ren Xiaosu quietly and muttered to him, "Thank you for not killing innocent people. Thank you for raising Yan Liwen so big. Thank you for eating grapes without spitting out the grape skins." Yan Liwen. Ren Xiaosu sighed. This palace was like dead, with no reaction at all. Chapter 111 Robbery. Maybe it was because he was sincere when he thanked him, or maybe it was because the palace didn't want Ren Xiaosu to die, so he gave him thankfulness coins for all 7 times of thanking him, but now he didn't get any. Ren Xiaosu felt a little regretful. If he had known, he would have thanked him more times. But Ren Xiaosu didn't notice that Yan Liwen beside him was confused at this moment. Others didn't hear what Ren Xiaosu said, but he heard it. The shadow of being asked to thank Ren Xiaosu for a whole night has not completely passed. Now you are thanking me? And what's the matter with thanking me for eating grapes without spitting out the grape skins? Can you be more careless? Suddenly, there was a commotion in front of the crowd again. It turned out that Wang Yang ordered the refugees to start searching everyone present one by one, as if to collect everyone's food. Wait, it's not just food. Ren Xiaosu saw that the refugees took away the watches on other people's wrists, as well as some gold and silver jewelry. Not a single one was left out. The people who escaped from these barriers were unlucky enough. Their families were destroyed in the morning, and they were plundered in the evening. If they reach barrier 109, they may not even have anything to sell. Wang Fuge was a little nervous. Xiaosu, will they take all our things? You know, the things Wang Fuge brought with him were his life savings, medicines, gold, banknotes. These things are very valuable, and those refugees will not let go. But Ren Xiaosu shook his head. Don't worry, no one can take them away. Originally, Ren Xiaosu didn't want to deal with Wang Yiheng and the others. He just wanted to reach barrier 109 safely, but the problem is that if you don't look for trouble, trouble will come to you. The fleeing crowd was as obedient as a group of sheep. More than 600 refugees searched for things from more than 3,000 people, but no one dared to resist, didn't dare to say a word, and even stood there and didn't dare to run away. This was a little hard for Ren Xiaosu to understand. If anyone among the more than 3,000 of you could raise their arms and fight back, what would these 600 people mean? The refugees were indeed more ferocious than the people of the barrier, but 2 fists can't beat 4 hands, so there's nothing to be afraid of. Ren Xiaosu saw that among the crowd, only the female teacher was secretly moving back with dozens of students, trying to avoid a search. When the refugees were searched at first, they were quite timid. After all, they were facing the people of the barrier, who were the existence that they used to think was high above them. But gradually they found that the people of the barrier dared not resist, so they became more and more unscrupulous, and even deliberately touched some women when searching. At this time, the female teacher and her students passed by Ren Xiaosu and his friends, and stopped behind them, as if they wanted to wait and see before considering whether to continue to retreat. However, some refugees had already come here. Ren Xiaosu looked at the refugees and thought to himself, I don't know if my identity will be recognized by the other party. If they changed their clothes and mixed in the crowd, their characteristics should not be so obvious. More than a dozen refugees came over with big and small bags, and each of them had a watch on their hand, which was just looted. Watches are very valuable items in the market town and the fortress. Originally, only the grocery store owner Lao Li had one in the market town, and Wang Fuge didn't have one. It seems that there are many rich and powerful people in this refugee crowd, but their power and status have now disappeared. Ren Xiaosu watched the more than 10 refugees silently as they came over. As a result, when the refugees saw Ren Xiaosu, they suddenly froze. Ren Xiaosu sighed in his heart. This fucking recognized him at a glance. The disguise failed. Just when Ren Xiaosu was thinking about how to deal with these refugees, These refugees who were responsible for looting property actually decisively deterred to search for others. People around Ren Xiaosu and his friends looked at him in surprise. What was going on? Those ferocious refugees actually took the initiative to bypass this boy? Why? Isn't this just a child of 16 or 17 years old? Those people actually saw it. When the refugees saw Ren Xiaosu, their expressions revealed deep fear, as if they were a little afraid of Ren Xiaosu. They couldn't understand why these refugees were afraid. However, what they didn't know was that, let alone fleeing now, even when the market town was still intact, no one dared to mess with Ren Xiaosu. He was a famous ruthless man, and now he had a gun on him. Although the refugees knew that there must be a lot of valuables in the bags of Wang Fuge and Wang Dalin, their lives were more important. The group of students and the female teacher behind Ren Xiaosu watched all this silently. The female teacher looked at Ren Xiaosu's back thoughtfully, and her lips gradually pursed up. Just when the refugees turned around to search for others, Ren Xiaosu suddenly spoke, "Ahem, come here." The refugees froze immediately. They turned their heads to look at Ren Xiaosu and said stiffly, "What's wrong?" "The watch is nice," Ren Xiaosu said. The refugees looked at each other in bewilderment. They had robbed thousands of people, but they were robbed by Ren Xiaosu. How could they complain? The people around them were speechless. It turned out that there was someone even more ruthless hiding beside them. One of the refugees honestly took off a watch from his wrist and handed it to Ren Xiaosu, with tears of humiliation in his heart. It was also a coincidence that he had just seen Ren Xiaosu killing people outside the school. The refugees were ready to turn around and leave. They wanted to stay away from Ren Xiaosu, but Ren Xiaosu's voice rang again, You. Your watches are not bad either." Ren Xiaosu pointed at the four people, and the four people's faces turned black. Why is it not over yet? But what could they say? They could only honestly take off the watches on their wrists and hand them to Ren Xiaosu. At this time, everyone around them was shocked. This young man was too ruthless. Ren Xiaosu did not continue robbing. After all, he did not want to confront these refugees head-on. Peace brings wealth. He waved his hand and said, "Go ahead." The refugees immediately ran away as if they had been pardoned. The sense of swell that had just accumulated in their hearts had disappeared. Ren Xiaosu handed the four watches he had just robbed to Sister Xiaoyu and the others, and said happily, "Here, we can check the time from now on." It was the first time in Wang Fuge's life that he wore a watch. When he helped Wang Dalin take the watch, he smiled and said, "Thank you, Uncle Xiaosu." Wang Dalin was about to cry. Why did he inexplicably lose a generation? Exclamation mark. At this moment, Ren Xiaosu had endless fantasies in his heart. He usually would not rob others, but it should be okay to rob the thieves. Chapter 112 Liu Bu's brother. Thousands of refugees were robbed by hundreds of people. Nothing was left, including watches, jewelry, banknotes, and food. There was very little food to begin with. The disaster came unexpectedly, so who had time to get food? Or, the bigwigs in the fortress had no idea about this at all, because most of them had never been hungry. So, even if someone brought food, it was just some snacks. Of course, there were also people who were not robbed, such as those within a 5-meter radius of Ren Xiaosu. The refugees really didn't dare to stay around Ren Xiaosu for too long, for fear that if they stayed for a few more seconds, Ren Xiaosu would take a fancy to something else. Ren Xiaosu happily looked at his new watch with Wang Fuge and the others. He didn't notice the way other people around him were looking at him. Especially the female teacher behind him, who looked at him with complicated eyes. The refugees around Ren Xiaosu could see that the refugees were afraid of this young man. Very afraid. In fact, Ren Xiaosu did not kill any innocent people in the market town, and he was even forced to kill people, but the refugees always had an instinctive fear when facing Ren Xiaosu. There is a kind of food chain in this world. The timid are afraid of the fierce, and the fierce are afraid of those who kill without blinking an eye. After the group of refugees finished looting, they went back to Wang Yihan to report. Someone whispered something in Wang Yihan's ear, and then Wang Yihan looked in the direction of Ren Xiaosu. At this moment, Ren Xiaosu felt as if someone was looking at him, so he turned his head and looked, and his eyes met Wang Yihan's. However, Ren Xiaosu's eyes were very calm, without any fear. Wang Yihan had a gloomy face and did not speak. After a long time, he suddenly said to the refugees around him, Don't worry about Ren Xiaosu for now. If he gets too aggressive, it won't be too late for us to deal with him." When Ren Xiaosu saw Wang Yiheng's eyes turn to other places, he sneered. This Wang Yiheng was just a player who bullied the weak and feared the strong. Although he had never dealt with Wang Yiheng, there were only so many people in the market town, and there were only a few factory managers, so he had heard of him. Wang Fuge whispered, "This Wang Yiheng has a godmother in the fortress, and it was because of this godmother that he got the job of the director of the gravel field." Well, Ren Xiaosu nodded, "Don't pay attention to him." Because of Wang Yiheng's robbing of the refugees, the entire refugee team came to a standstill. At this time, everyone felt extremely tired, so they all sat on the ground and began to rest. After a while, a large group of people lay on the ground. It was so tiring that everyone fell asleep without realizing it. Ren Xiaosu said, "You guys take a rest first, I'll guard the first half of the night, and Yan Liwen and Lao Wang will guard the second half of the night. One of him and Yan Liwen must be awake, because he and Yan Liwen both have guns in the team, and one of the two guns must be on alert. Wang Fuge, Xiaoyuji, and Wang Daling in this team had no need to harm him." First of all, Ren Xiaosu had never revealed the gold in his palace. Secondly, without Ren Xiaosu, none of them would be able to reach Barrier 109 alive. The five of them were a small group in this chaotic crowd. No one else could integrate into it, and Ren Xiaosu would not trust anyone else. Yan Liwen said, "How about you go to sleep first, and I'll guard the first half of the night? You're tired today, too." "No," Ren Xiaosu frowned and said, "just sleep if I tell you to. Don't waste any more time." "Oh," Yan Liwen nodded obediently. Wang Fuge sighed in his heart. Just looking at Yan Liwen's obedient appearance in front of Ren Xiaosu, who would have thought that this kid had shot and killed several gangsters a few days ago? They were simply two little monsters. After everyone fell asleep, Ren Xiaosu was alone thinking about what to do in the future. If they could enter the 109th barrier, that would be the best. The gold in his hand and the medicine brought by Lao Wang should be enough for them to gain a foothold. But if they couldn't enter, they could only live in the market town outside the 109th barrier. The previous earthquake should have also had an impact on 109, but it would not be like 113, which directly shook down the barrier. At this moment, a middle-aged man suddenly stood up and walked towards Ren Xiaosu and the others. Ren Xiaosu looked up at him and said, "Don't get closer, or you will die." The middle-aged man was a little embarrassed. "I am a section chief of the logistics department in our 113th barrier. My name is Liu Hai." Now it was Ren Xiaosu's turn to be stunned. He remembered that Luo Zinayu told him that Liu Bu's brother was a section chief of the logistics department. Could it be the one in front of him? Question mark. Thinking of this, Ren Xiaosu was unhappy. At the beginning, Ren Xiaosu wanted to kill Liu Bu to silence him, but he, Su Xianshu, and Yang Xiajin were not completely cold-blooded people after all, so no one killed Liu Bu. But didn't Liu Bu sell everyone out? Liu Bu was like this, how could his brother Liu Hai be any better? Liu Hai looked at Ren Xiaosu and said, "This is it, can I join your team? When we get to the 109th barrier, I will immediately find someone I know to arrange a very good house for you in the barrier. I have money if you want it, but I have it all in Queen's Bank." Ren Xiaosu looked at him coldly, and said, "I guess you directors can't do what you say. If you have such great ability, you wouldn't just be a section chief. Get out of here." Liu Hai's face turned pale and blue, and he didn't say a word for a long time. Many people around were awakened, but they didn't say anything, but listened quietly to the conversation between Liu Hai and Ren Xiaosu. In fact, many of them had similar ideas to Liu Hai. It was obvious that Wang Yiheng and others didn't dare to touch Ren Xiaosu, and Ren Xiaosu looked much more friendly than Wang Yiheng and others. Why not ask Ren Xiaosu to take care of him on the way? They saw Ren Xiaosu taking care of the old, the young, and the women, and thought that Ren Xiaosu might be a kind-hearted person, but they didn't know what Wang Fujian's sister Xiaoyu had done for Ren Xiaosu. The students of Barrier No. 2 Middle School had already fallen down, not caring whether the ground was dirty or not, because they were really exhausted. Only the female teacher was still holding on. When she saw someone looking for Ren Xiaosu, her eyes lit up, but she didn't expect that Ren Xiaosu would so easily dispel everyone's thoughts. She was a little disappointed, but there was nothing she could do. Slowly, she fell into deep sleep. After leading the students all the way out that day, the female teacher was exhausted. Yan Luan woke up in the middle of the night. "Brother, you should take a nap." "Yes," Ren Xiaosu nodded. He looked at Sister Xiaolu, Wang Fuge and others who were sleeping soundly, thought for a while and sighed, "Let them have a good sleep today, and the two of us will just keep watch." Chapter 113 Wild Vegetables. The next morning, Ren Xiaosu got up early. He didn't know why he had more and more energy since he became a superhuman. His body seemed to be burning with fire. He only slept for 4 hours last night, but he felt that he had fully recovered after waking up. Wang Fuge took out the food he brought and shared it with everyone. Now they all had food to eat together, and no one kept anything to themselves. Seeing that the thousands of refugees were all hungry, the refugees around Ren Xiaosu and his friends swallowed their saliva when they saw Ren Xiaosu and his friends eating. But they could only watch helplessly, but they didn't dare to ask Ren Xiaosu for food. Everyone was not stupid. They knew that no one would share food with others at this time. Instead of getting rejected, they might as well shut up. Wang Yihan did collect a lot of food, but the problem was that the refugees didn't bring much food, and there were more than 600 refugees following Wang Yihan. In the end, only Wang Yihan and the dozens of refugees he trusted most had food, and the others were still hungry. "We have to keep going forward," Wang Yihan said with a sullen face. "Brothers who haven't eaten yet don't need to worry too much. I believe we should be able to find food ahead. From today on, I will eat wild vegetables and tree bark with everyone else." The refugees who didn't get to eat complained in their hearts, "Yes, you said you would dig wild vegetables with everyone else after you had a full meal. What were you doing before?" But they dared not speak out. In fact, the refugee group was not united. Just like Ren Xiaosu said, it was just a mob. Wang Yihan led the refugees forward, and as soon as they moved, the thousands of refugees behind them also moved. Ren Xiaosu was a little puzzled. If he was robbed, he would never follow Wang Yihan and his group. But this group of refugees was different. After being robbed, they had to follow this group of refugees. "Let's go." Ren Xiaosu looked at Sister Xiaoyu and the others. "We still have a long way to go to the 109th barrier. We can't let down our guard." "Yes," Sister Xiaoyu nodded. Most people in the market town were stronger than the people in the barrier, and they had already suffered the hardships they should have suffered. At this time, the students behind Ren Xiaosu and the others stood up. When the female teacher stood up, she cried out in pain and fell to the ground again. Ren Xiaosu turned around and saw that some female students wanted to help the female teacher up, but the female teacher slowly stood up by herself. She smiled at the students and said, "The teacher is fine. You don't have to worry about the teacher. We must not fall behind." A student whispered, "Teacher Jiang Wu, I'm so hungry." They hadn't eaten for a day and a night, and they had also made a long journey to escape. It was impossible not to be hungry. Some students even had symptoms of dizziness. The female teacher named Jiang Wu was embarrassed. She comforted them, "Let's go a little further and maybe there will be food. People from the 109th barrier may come to rescue us. If that doesn't work, the teacher will pick some wild vegetables for you." "Teacher, what do wild vegetables look like?" a female student asked curiously. Ren Xiaosu glanced at the female student and saw that she was still wearing a gold bracelet on her wrist. If they had not been close to Ren Xiaosu yesterday, the gold bracelet would have been torn away by the refugees. These children grew up in a world that the consortium deliberately protected. They didn't even know how miserable the people outside the barrier were, and it was even more impossible for them to know what wild vegetables were. But Jiang Wu was also stumped by the question. She also heard someone next to her say that they should pick wild vegetables to eat, but she herself didn't have the ability to identify wild vegetables, and she didn't learn this in the barrier. But Jiang Wu was not stupid. She secretly pointed at Ren Xiaosu and others, and then whispered to the students, "See the people in front of us? They look pretty good. We'll pick whatever they pick and eat." At this time, Ren Xiaosu didn't realize that the female teacher named Jiang Wu behind him had already determined that Ren Xiaosu was the most powerful one among the refugees. A student said, "Why don't we just ask him for help?" Jiang Wu shook his head. "Now that the barrier is gone, you have to understand that not everyone should be able to help us. We have to save ourselves." When they set out again, Sister Xiaolu, Wang Fuge, and Yan Luan were obviously in better mental states than the others. Sister Xiaolu looked back at Jiang Wu's group, then whispered to Ren Xiaosu with a smile, There are quite a few beautiful girls in the group of barrier students at the back, and they are all about your age. What do you think? If you like any of them, I will help you talk to them. If you have a meal now, someone will follow you. Ren Xiaosu did not know whether to laugh or cry. Sister Xiaoyu, don't worry about it. Let's get to barrier 109 first. Okay, Sister Xiaoyu said with a smile, but if you change your mind, you can tell me anytime. I will help you take care of your children in the future. At this time, Ren Xiaosu suddenly saw the plants on the side of the road and his eyes lit up. He walked to the side of the road and pulled out a whole plant by the roots. Seeing this, Jiang Wu quickly whispered to the students, "Go, find the same plant he has in his hand." The students were already starving, so they rushed to the roadside. At this time, Ren Xiaosu said to Wang Fuge, "This kind of plant must not be eaten. I ate it once 2 years ago and had diarrhea for 3 days." Jiang Wu and the students were speechless and threw away the plants they had just pulled out. It was not until then that Ren Xiaosu realized that the students were imitating him. He thought about it and suddenly said to Wang Fuge, "The small clump of plants at your feet is called pillow grass, also known as shepherd's purse, which can be eaten. If eaten raw, it may be a little bitter because of the alkaloids, but compared to staying alive, a little bitterness is nothing." Wang Fuge was puzzled. "Why are you popularizing this to me? My family often makes dumplings with shepherd's purse, so of course I know that this thing can be eaten." However, Ren Xiaosu's words were not meant for him. Jiang Wu glanced at Ren Xiaosu. Because she had been observing Ren Xiaosu, she knew very well why Ren Xiaosu suddenly said this. This was for her. Jiang Wu glanced at Ren Xiaosu and turned to the students and said, "Everyone go pick this pillow grass." When she finished speaking, she looked at Ren Xiaosu again and found that he had already led the team away. Yan Liwen smiled beside Ren Xiaosu and said, "Brother, are you attracted to that female teacher? She's pretty." Ren Xiaosu shook his head and said, "I just hope that teachers like this can live longer, but that's all." Jiang Wu must have suffered a lot to escape with a bunch of students. These days, everyone is indifferent to others' lives. Who cares about other people's lives? Ren Xiaosu is selfish, but this does not prevent him from admiring Jiang Wu. Chapter 114 Psychological Balance. The team of several thousand people walked forward. Most of them were starving, especially in this early winter. People who didn't eat would feel the weather was particularly cold. Wild vegetables were a little wilted in this season, even the tenacious shepherd's purse was withering. The fleeing crowd searched for edible things on the roadside as they walked, plants, bark, roots. At first, the people of the wall still had their own reserve, but they were so hungry that they lost all their face and dignity. On the contrary, Ren Xiaosu and his group had no psychological pressure at all, because they usually ate these things anyway. Eating wild vegetables raw was bitter, and the mouth was astringent after eating. Some people vomited after eating, and they couldn't stand this kind of food. However, some people were even more unlucky. I don't know what they ate before they foamed at the mouth and lay on the road. No one would care about these people who fell on the road. Everyone just passed by them indifferently and continued to move forward, like a group of zombies. Only Ren Xiaosu would stop when he passed by. He looked at the man and said to Yan Liwen, "This is the symptom of eating whitehead, which is what we often call wild celery or poisonous ginseng. The leaves of this thing look very much like celery. Once eaten by mistake, you will experience nausea, vomiting, cold hands and feet, paralysis of the limbs, and severe cases can cause death." Jiang Wu, who followed silently behind him, wrote down this sentence, and then warned the students not to pick plants with leaves that look like celery leaves. As a result, the students were at a loss. What do celery leaves look like? These students usually live in the barrier, and naturally their parents prepare food, clothing, housing and transportation for them. Who cares what celery leaves look like? After these thousands of refugees passed by, the road they walked on was as broken as if it had been crossed by locusts. At this time, Ren Xiaosu suddenly saw an off-road vehicle in front of him. Wasn't that the vehicle that Luo Lan was riding? Why was it parked here alone? Everyone walked over and saw that the beam of the off-road vehicle was broken, so that it could not be repaired at all. The dirt road in the wilderness was bumpy and uneven. Although the off-road vehicle was powerful, it couldn't withstand such a toss. I'm afraid Luo Lan didn't expect that he would encounter such a bad thing. In the end, he had to abandon the car. A group of refugees frantically opened the car door to search for food in the car, but to their disappointment, The car was very clean, even the leather covers of the seats were removed. Not only that, some parts that were convenient to carry were also removed. Ren Xiaosu estimated that the removed parts were used as spare parts to prevent other vehicles from having any problems again, but this car was completely scrapped. Ren Xiaosu thought that Luolan was rushing to Barrier 109 with all his strength, right? Logically speaking, Luolan might have reached Barrier 109 now. Today, many refugees are discussing whether they can still enter the barrier. Some people say why Barrier 109 doesn't let them in? They are legal residents in the barrier. Although the barriers are now very divided, and basically the actual control of the consortium has the final say, but in name all barriers are united. Some people also said that they might not be able to get in. The 113th barrier they were at before was under the management of the Qing Consortium, but the 109th barrier they were going to was under the management of the Li Consortium. You really don't have a temper when they say they can't let you in. Ren Xiaosu thought that bigwigs from consortiums like Luolan usually don't have to consider whether they can enter the barrier. After all, the Li Consortium has to give the Qing Consortium some face. But the others might really be in trouble. They continued to move forward, and soon, Ren Xiaosu actually saw another troop transport truck parked alone on the road. Was it another broken one? Everyone walked closer and saw that it had a flat tire. Did they have a spare tire or something? Ren Xiaosu was curious. When the troop transport truck passed by Ren Xiaosu, he saw that it was full of soldiers, and it was obviously overloaded. If a few more cars break down, Ren Xiaosu estimates that it will be difficult for Luolan to reach Barrier 109. However, everyone was very happy to see these damaged vehicles. When Luolan and others drove past at lightning speed, the refugees were wondering why everyone else walked but you could drive. Now, everyone is more balanced. That night, everyone rested next to the troop transport truck. It couldn't be called camping at this time. It was just a bunch of people sleeping on the ground in the wilderness. The ground was very cold. Lying on the ground, you could feel the cool air from the ground penetrating your body. Many people wanted to light a bonfire, but the problem was that they didn't bring anything to make fire. After Ren Xiaosu settled Yan Liwen and the others, he went to collect firewood. The weather was getting colder and colder, and the firewood had to be enough to burn all night, otherwise everyone would easily catch a cold and have a fever the next morning. Although Wang Fuge had medicine, who would want to get sick when they have nothing to do? In this season, dry firewood is easy to find. When Ren Xiaosu came back with a large pile of dry firewood, he saw Jiang Wu lying on the ground and drilling wood to make fire. The female teacher organized the students to collect a lot of firewood and then tried to light a fire by rubbing the sticks with their hands. Ren Xiaosu shook his head secretly. It was obvious that the female teacher was delicate and had not done much work. If a normal person wanted to drill wood to make fire with his hands, he would probably get blisters on his palms. Jiang Wu knelt on the ground and continued to drill wood to make fire stubbornly. A boy said, "Teacher, let me do it." Jiang Wu shook his head. "You are students. You don't have to do this kind of hard work. Go and have a rest." She subconsciously glanced at Ren Xiaosu, wanting to see how Ren Xiaosu drilled wood to make fire, so that she could learn from him. As a result, she saw Ren Xiaosu take out a box of matches. How come this person is so prepared? Jiang Wu pursed her lips. Obviously, everyone was fleeing, but she always felt that Ren Xiaosu's team was much more relaxed than others. When the first bonfire was lit on Ren Xiaosu's side, the night of the entire camp seemed to have a touch of warmth, and the originally cold moonlight seemed to have a hint of temperature. Of course, Ren Xiaosu and his friends were not the only ones who lit a bonfire in the entire camp. In fact, some smokers also brought matches. However, several women went to those smokers to borrow fire, but they were all asked unreasonable requests. It had only been a short time since they escaped. Who would betray themselves for a fire? Jiang Wu hesitated for a long time and suddenly walked towards Ren Xiaosu. Sister Xiaoyu and others were originally chatting, and then when they saw Jiang Wu coming, they all stopped and looked at her. "Can I?" Jiang Wu said in a measured tone, "Can I borrow some fire? I can exchange some of our dry firewood for you." "Sure," Sister Xiaoyu said with a smile. "Don't give us dry firewood, we have enough." "Thank you." Jiang Wu was a little excited. "Thank you so much." She ran back to her side and brought some dry firewood over, and lit it with Ren Xiaosu's bonfire. The students next to them looked at her expectantly, like a group of hungry chicks. Chapter 115 The Monkey King. When Jiang Wu went back to light his own bonfire, all the students gathered around to warm themselves. Their bodies had already gone cold, and there was no warmth in their fingers and toes. Suddenly, two middle-aged men stood up and walked towards Ren Xiaosu and the others, but before they got close, Sister Xiaoyu said coldly, "No." The two middle-aged men went back in dismay, thinking that the gap between men and women was too big. Sister Xiaoyu is quite domineering, Yan Liwen said with a smile. He imitated Sister Xiaoyu's tone and said coldly, "No." "What do you know?" Sister Xiaoyu smiled and rolled her eyes at him. "This teacher named Jiang Wu is quite good, a good person." Those two men had to wait for a woman to set an example for them before they dared to come and speak. They are really useless. Moreover, this Jiang Wu rubbed wood to make fire for a long time, and had no choice but to ask us for fire. As for the others, they didn't put in any effort at all, and just knew how to pick up the ready-made ones. Sister Xiaoyu deliberately raised her voice when she said this, which embarrassed the group of men next to her. After she finished speaking, she smiled at Ren Xiaosu. "Only you dare to speak louder in front of me. What do you think of that girl?" Ren Xiaosu is confused. "What the hell? Why are you pretending to be confused?" Sister Xiaoyu laughed. "Although she looks a little older than you, a woman 3 years older than you is worth a lot of money. It's okay as long as she is a good person." Okay, Sister Xiaoyu," Ren Xiaosu said with a smile, "let's eat quickly." At this time, Jiang Wu led the students to sit in front of the bonfire. She comforted the students and said, "Everyone, have a good rest at night. I have a hairpin here. Everyone, pick the blisters on your feet one by one before going to sleep." The students were silent one by one. A female student bowed her head and said, "Thank you, teacher. In fact, you don't have to do this for us. We are not on the school now." "What are you talking about?" Jiang Wu interrupted. "I am your teacher. I must take you to the safe barrier." "Teacher, I miss home. I miss my parents. I don't know where they are now." The students cried as they talked. The grief after experiencing the disaster was finally released until this moment. When someone cried, someone else cried next to him, as if the crying was contagious. All the people who escaped from the barrier cried together. Everyone couldn't help but feel sad. This was a real family breakdown. Only Ren Xiaosu and his friends were left sitting in the crying crowd, looking confused. "Brother, should we cry?" Yan Liwen looked around and asked weakly. "It's okay, we won't cry," Ren Xiaosu said speechlessly. Suddenly, footsteps and voices were heard on the road they came from. Someone shouted, "Look, there's a fire, there must be someone alive." Ren Xiaosu turned around and saw a young man leading dozens of people running towards them. The young man shouted excitedly, "Look, what did I say? I said I could take you to meet up with the others." Ren Xiaosu was a little confused. These people also escaped, so why did they catch up now? At this time, the young man came to the main group. Someone asked, "Did you also escape from the rampart?" "I remember that the people behind were blocked by the strange bugs." One person answered, "Thanks to this Chen Wudi, he helped us open a new way out, so we escaped. By the way, he is a supernatural being." The young man named Chen Wudi said happily, "This is what I should do. The Monkey King should exorcise demons and protect the people." Ren Xiaosu thought to himself, "What is this all about?" He looked closely and saw that Chen Wudi's clothes were a bit strange. On the chest of his blue and white striped shirt was written, 113 Rampart 3rd Mental Hospital. So, he is a mental patient? Ren Xiaosu had heard of the title of Monkey King. There used to be a set of Journey to the West in the school, which students could borrow. In the past, there was a tavern in the market town before alcohol was banned. The storytellers in the tavern loved to tell the story of Zhao Ziling's 7 ins and outs of Chang Banpo in the Three Kingdoms, and the Monkey King's havoc in the Heavenly Palace. Zhang Jinglan said that these were the 4 great classics, the treasures of mankind, and there were 2 other works called Dream of the Red Chamber and Water Margin, but the storyteller never told Dream of the Red Chamber. Someone once asked the storyteller why he didn't tell Dream of the Red Chamber, and the storyteller smiled and said that it was not fun to tell that. In the past, Ren Xiaosu liked to take Yan Liwen to listen to stories, but then alcohol was banned and life became more difficult. The storyteller didn't know where he went, and there was no more stories to listen to. At this time, someone whispered to the people around Chen Wudi, "Did he escape from the mental hospital?" Could he be one of the people who were captured by the Qing group a while ago? The person next to Chen Wuti whispered, I'm afraid so. He is a superhuman who can conjure up a stick and has great strength. But he insisted that he was the reincarnation of the Monkey King, and we don't know whether it's true or not. To be honest, if Chen Wuti was not a superhuman, they would just think that Chen Wuti was a delusional patient, but now it's different. Some people really believe Chen Wuti's words in a daze. Of course, they are only half believing and half doubting. Ren Xiaosu looked at Chen Wuti with interest. He is now very interested in all superhumans. However, Chen Wuti's eyes swept through the crowd. When he saw Ren Xiaosu, his expression changed. His eyes seemed to be filled with extreme joy. Make way. Make way. Chen Wuti pushed through the crowd and walked towards Ren Xiaosu. Ren Xiaosu suddenly had a bad feeling. Yan Liwen asked in a low voice, Brother, do you know him? No. Ren Xiaosu wondered. Chen Wuti was getting closer and closer to Ren Xiaosu. Finally, he walked in front of Ren Xiaosu and finally stopped, looking at Ren Xiaosu with sparkling eyes. Master. Chen Wuti said in surprise. Ren Xiaosu. What the hell? Exclamation mark. Chen Wuti turned around and shouted to the people he was traveling with, I found Master. Take care of yourselves. I want to protect him on his way to the west to obtain the scriptures. Everyone. Wang Fuge, who was standing aside, almost laughed himself silly. He couldn't figure out what was going on, but when he saw Ren Xiaosu's surprised expression, he felt inexplicably funny. However, at this moment, Chen Wuti turned his head and looked at Wang Fuge. Beiji, what are you laughing at? Wang Fuge's smile suddenly stopped. Chen Wuti ignored him, and continued to look at Wang Daling and smiled. Shaseng, you are here too, that's great. Wang Daling suddenly felt that the relationship between him and his father seemed to have changed. The original father and son suddenly became brothers. What the hell? Ren Xiaosu suddenly felt a little melancholy. He was going to the west to obtain the scriptures? Exclamation mark. The turning point of life is so sudden. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116 It's You. Ren Xiaosu looked at Chen Wuti in a daze. I must explain, I am not your master, and I am not going to the west to obtain the scriptures. That's not right. Chen Wuti shook his head. Master, which direction are you going now? Southwest. Ren Xiaosu is stunned for a moment. Barrier number 109 is in the southwest. Chen Wuti said solemnly, the west is also in the southwest. Maybe master you haven't realized it yet, but you are already on the way to the west to obtain the scriptures. What the hell is going on? This is the first time that Ren Xiaosu has been confused by someone. I repeat again, I am really not your master. Lao Wang is not Beiji, and the one next to him is Wang Dalan, not Shaseng. Chen Wuti waved his arm. It's not important. Ren Xiaosu and Wang Fuge were confused at the time. How could this not be important? It's very important, okay. Yan Liwen on the side was holding back his laughter, fearing that Chen Wuti would turn his attention to himself. Sister Xiaoyu hid behind Yan Liwen, and the two of them laughed so hard that their bodies began to shake. At this time, someone asked, what did you encounter when you escaped? The crowd that had just joined the main force was still in shock. The bugs with human faces on their backs were too scary. We heard the howling of wolves last night. We were so scared that we didn't dare to sleep all night. But fortunately, Chen Wuti. Call me the Monkey King, Chen Wuti corrected. Oh, fortunately, the Monkey King helped us drive away all the bugs at that time. Those bugs seemed to be quite afraid of him. The person who spoke was extremely tired. He had been worried for the past 2 days. Now that thousands of people were gathered together, they finally felt a little safe. At this time, Ren Xiaosu had already begun to think about how he should get along with this Chen Wuti. This guy claimed to be the reincarnation of the Monkey King, but Ren Xiaosu didn't believe a penny of this statement. It was probably because he had heard too many stories about the Monkey King since he was a child, so he fantasized about becoming such a hero. But in fact, after reading Journey to the West, Ren Xiaosu found that the image of the Monkey King, a hero who fought unyieldingly and slew demons, was a fantasy and processing of people. It was just that people needed such a hero. At this moment, Wang Yiheng and others came over. He deliberately avoided Ren Xiaosu and said to the group of people who had just arrived, "Hand over all the valuables on you." While he was talking, he was still paying attention to Ren Xiaosu. Wang Yiheng's strategy was very simple. "I won't mess with you, Ren Xiaosu, and the people around you, but you don't interfere when I bully others. People with guns should stay out of each other's business." However, when his peripheral vision swept over Ren Xiaosu and the others, he was suddenly stunned. He saw a black and gold iron rod suddenly materialized in Chen Wudi's hand. This scene stunned Ren Xiaosu. The two ends of the iron rod were golden hoops, and the middle was black iron. "Isn't this the golden hoop mentioned in Journey to the West?" Wang Yiheng turned his head to look at Chen Wudi, but saw Chen Wudi pointing the golden hoop at him. "It's you, Xiao Zhuangfen." Wang Yiheng. "Who the hell is Xiao Zhuangfen?" Wang Yiheng thought that even if you were mentally ill, you were at least a character like the Black Mountain Old Demon or the Yellow Robe Monster. Who had Xiao Zhuangfen looked down on? But before Wang Yiheng could react, he saw Chen Wudi had already hit him with a stick. Chen Wudi roared, "You will not be allowed to oppress the people here." Ren Xiaosu led Yan Liwen and the others to retreat a little, fearing that someone would be accidentally injured in the battle. You know, Wang Yiheng had a gun in his hand. When Wang Yiheng saw the golden hoop coming, he subconsciously retreated and drew his gun. Chen Wudi's stick just brushed his nose and hit the ground. A cloud of dust was stirred up, and even the ground was shaking. Ren Xiaosu was surprised and wondered if Chen Wudi's stick really weighed more than 13,500 pounds? No, it shouldn't be that much. With a bang, Wang Yiheng's gun shot out fire. Everyone was stunned for a moment, because Chen Wudi had placed his golden hoop across his chest. He smiled and said, "My golden hoop can't be penetrated by bullets." Yan Liwen asked curiously, "But the bullet didn't hit your golden hoop. Your chest is bleeding." Chen Wudi looked down at his chest, then took a deep breath and said, "Fuck." After saying that, the veins on Chen Wudi's neck throbbed. The bullet that shot into his chest was squeezed out of his body by his muscle strength. In fact, Ren Xiaosu had noticed before that the bullet itself did not penetrate. He could even see the yellow bullet tip exposed on the surface of Chen Wudi's skin. Legend has it that the Monkey King has a bronze head and iron arms that are invulnerable to swords and guns, but what kind of muscle strength does it take to prevent bullets from penetrating? Ren Xiaosu was sure that he could never do it. Wang Yiheng gritted his teeth and wanted to shoot again, but his eyes blurred and he lost sight of Chen Wudi. The next moment, the golden hoop appeared from his left. The heavy golden hoop vibrated in the air and made a buzzing sound, as if even the space began to resonate. The refugees around Wang Yiheng fled the battlefield one after another, and the golden hoop hit Wang Yiheng's waist fiercely. With a click, Wang Yiheng's whole body showed an irregular twist from the waist. This stick actually broke Wang Yiheng's spine directly. In an instant, Wang Yiheng fell out, and he lay on the ground and felt that his whole body was no longer under control. With a thud, Chen Wudi smashed the golden hoop on the ground, and he stood up with the stick, looking majestic. Chen Wudi turned his head and looked at Ren Xiaosu. "Master, am I handsome?" "I really am." Ren Xiaosu didn't know how to respond for a long time. At this moment, the refugees quickly moved away from Wang Yiheng, fearing that Wang Yiheng, who was lying on the ground and wailing, would implicate them. The other refugees showed joy in their eyes, because they had hated Wang Yiheng to the core, and everyone knew that Wang Yiheng would continue to push his luck. Someone said to Chen Wudi, "Thank you." "Why thank me?" Chen Wudi waved his hand nonchalantly, "Thank my master." At this time, several people were stunned for a moment and turned to look at Ren Xiaosu. "Thank you." Ren Xiaosu's eyes lit up, because in just a short while, he actually received more than 10 thank you coins. He was originally worried about how to collect thank you coins, but he didn't expect that Chen Wudi would help him get so many without doing anything. Suddenly, Yan Liwen looked at Ren Xiaosu to ask what to do next, but he saw Ren Xiaosu eagerly walking towards Chen Wudi. "Does your wound still hurt?" "Master has some excellent medicine to treat external injuries." Yan Liwen. Wang Fuge. Everyone. Are they really going to the West to obtain Buddhist scriptures? Exclamation mark. Chapter 117-72 Transformations. Just now, Ren Xiaosu had tried his best to deny that he was Chen Wudi's so-called master, but how come the two of them started to play a scene of deep affection between master and apprentice in the blink of an eye? Yan Liwen and Wang Fuge stared at Ren Xiaosu taking out a small porcelain bottle. Wang Fuge took a breath of cold air. Ren Xiaosu was not good at using this medicine treasure. At the beginning, he tried his best to persuade him, but Ren Xiaosu was not willing to give it to Chen Wudi for free. And now, Ren Xiaosu is willing to give it to Chen Wudi for free. Is this still Ren Xiaosu? However, only Ren Xiaosu knew that Chen Wudi, a paranoid patient who liked to exorcise demons and uphold justice, might be his magic weapon for swiping thank you coins in the future. In fact, Ren Xiaosu also had the intention of using Chen Wudi, but when he looked at Chen Wudi's sincere eyes, he was suddenly touched. He sighed and turned to look at Wang Fuge. Wang Fuge hadn't reacted from the shock yet, and he heard Ren Xiaosu say to him, "Beiji, get some food for your senior brother." Wang Fuge. Crazy ball. Wang Fuge felt that the world had gone crazy. But even though he thought so, Wang Fuge still took out a steamed bread and handed it to Chen Wudi. "Thank you, master." Chen Wudi took the steamed bread and stuffed it into his mouth. He was really hungry. Thanks from Chen Wudi, +1. The palace was right. This was a sincere thank you. Ren Xiaosu looked at Chen Wudi wolfing down his food. He suddenly felt that the relationship between the master and the apprentice seemed to be quite good. Chen Wudi looked up at this time. "Master, I'm still hungry." Ren Xiaosu thought that this apprentice was quite good at fighting, but he was a bit of a eater. He thought for a while and said, "Apprentice, do you know what begging is?" "Yes." Chen Wudi nodded. "I'll point out a few people for you. Go and get some vegetarian food from them." As he said that, Ren Xiaosu pointed out a few refugees to Chen Wudi. They were all Wang Yiheng's confidants in the sand and gravel field. Ren Xiaosu also knew that the food that this group of people had robbed must have been hidden on their bodies. "Okay, master." Chen Wudi went to find the refugees with his golden hoop. They almost peed themselves on the spot. Wang Yiheng was still lying on the ground wailing. "Is this called begging? Everyone robs in the same way. Why do we call it robbery, but you call it begging?" Exclamation mark. They looked at Wang Yiheng and decisively took out all the food they had. When Chen Wudi returned to Ren Xiaosu, he took a lot of chocolates and biscuits. Chen Wudi looked at Ren Xiaosu as if to ask for credit. "Master, I'll give it to you." Ren Xiaosu shook his head. "You got all these, keep them for yourself." To be honest, Ren Xiaosu was really embarrassed to snatch Chen Wudi's food. He didn't have any psychological pressure to bully others, but for some reason, Ren Xiaosu always felt guilty when he thought of bullying the sturdy Chen Wudi. Maybe this is also a kind of talent of Chen Wudi. Several little girls from the barrier number 2 middle school beside them looked at Chen Wudi with admiration. Chen Wudi was also quite handsome, and he had just punished the evildoers. Except that the hospital gown of a mental patient on him was a bit annoying. He was really suitable to be a hero. The little girls secretly looked at Chen Wudi. They were also at the age of falling in love. In this chaotic environment, anyone who could give them a sense of security would immediately gain their favor. Only Jiang Wu's eyes were still on Ren Xiaosu. She suddenly felt that Ren Xiaosu might not be a good person, but he was definitely not a bad person. After the brief storm, everyone returned to calm. They urgently needed to rest because they had to travel tomorrow. Ren Xiaosu felt a little strange. The refugees had robbed a lot of things from the people of the barrier. In the past, it could be said that everyone was afraid of the gun in Wang Yiheng's hand and did not dare to resist. This was understandable. But now Wang Yiheng, the backbone of the refugees, is dead, and the gun has fallen into the hands of Wang Fuge. Logically, the people of the barrier should take revenge and take back their things. Unfortunately, Ren Xiaosu found that these refugees still did not dare to have any conflict with the refugees. Originally, Ren Xiaosu's team was 5 people around the campfire, but now it suddenly became 6 people. Chen Wudi has been eating with a grumble, and it seems that he has been starving in the past 2 days. Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked, "I heard that the Monkey King can have 72 transformations, and can also pull the hair behind his head to turn into a monkey. Since you are the Monkey King, can you do these?" "No," Chen Wudi admitted his weakness very straightforwardly. He said, "Maybe I have been reincarnated for a short time, so I haven't been able to awaken other abilities yet." "Have you tried it?" Ren Xiaosu asked curiously. "I tried, but it didn't work," Chen Wudi answered honestly. At this time, Ren Xiaosu took a look and found that there was a small bald spot behind Chen Wudi's right ear. It seems that he really tried it. I don't know why Ren Xiaosu has been feeling more and more that everyone's extraordinary abilities seem to be more or less related to their spiritual will. For example, his mysterious spiritual power value has no clear answer so far. For example, the combat strength of Su Xianchu's shadow is directly related to his spiritual power. And this Chen Wudi is even more obvious. He fantasizes that he is the Monkey King, and as a result, he really manifests the golden hoop, and his physical fitness is gradually approaching an inhuman state. At this time, Ren Xiaosu was thinking, will there be many more paranoid patients who have become extraordinary people like Chen Wudi? Wouldn't it be miserable for the paranoiacs to become extraordinary people, and then imagine that a few enemies killed them? Of course, Ren Xiaosu felt that this was unrealistic. It was not that a mentally ill person would have strong mental strength. While thinking, several female refugees walked over to Jiang Wu and asked, "Can I borrow a fire?" Ren Xiaosu turned around and saw that these women of different ages came to Jiang Wu, a female teacher who looked easy to talk to borrow fire instead of Ren Xiaosu. I guess they were worried that Ren Xiaosu would make unreasonable requests. Ren Xiaosu was upset. What the hell did they think of me, Ren Xiaosu? Exclamation mark. Am I the kind of person who will eat anything when hungry? And that sister, you are over 50 years old, right? What's wrong with your eyes that are on guard against me? Exclamation mark. But Jiang Wu did not agree directly. Instead, he looked at Ren Xiaosu and the others and asked, "This is the fire I borrowed from you. Do you agree that I can lend it to them?" "Go ahead." Ren Xiaosu looked at the women. He was not petty enough to argue with them. Jiang Wu's reaction surprised him. The women thanked Ren Xiaosu repeatedly, and quickly lit the firewood in their arms and went back. Ren Xiaosu received 3 thank you coins again. Thank you for your support, monthly tickets, monthly tickets, monthly tickets. Chapter 118 You Must Go. Watching those women bring back firewood, Ren Xiaosu felt that it was really difficult for women to survive in this environment. Just then he heard someone snoring next to him. Ren Xiaosu turned around and saw that Chen Wudi had fallen asleep while eating. On the way to escape, Chen Wudi was alone protecting dozens of people and must have been exhausted. Ren Xiaosu suddenly felt that this world was a bit ironic. Among these thousands of people, there was only one fool Chen Wudi and a woman Jiang Wu who were willing to be good people. Those who claimed to be smart only wanted to protect themselves, and Ren Xiaosu was no exception. But Ren Xiaosu was not ashamed. He had never thought about being a good person. "Brother, you should take a nap." Yan Liu looked at Ren Xiaosu, and he added some firewood to the campfire. "Uncle Fuge and I will guard the first half of the night." "Yes, I have a gun now." Wang Fuge smiled. He kept holding the gun in his arms, as if he felt safe with a gun. Ren Xiaosu thought for a moment and said, "Okay, I'll sleep for a while." "Liu, teach Lao Wang how to use a gun." Wang Yan, who was hit on the waist by Chen Wudi with a stick, had long been dead. Not only was his spine broken, but his internal organs were also ruptured to varying degrees. No one could survive in this situation. When Ren Xiaosu opened his eyes in the middle of the night, he suddenly saw that Chen Wudi had woken up at some point and was staring at him with his eyes wide open. Yan Liu and Wang Fuge, who were in charge of the night watch, did not sleep. Wang Fuge was guarding the periphery with a gun, while Yan Liu was guarding Chen Wudi. Although everyone knew that guns did not have a fatal effect on Chen Wudi, it could not be said that they would not be on guard against him. For Ren Xiaosu and the others, no matter how sincere Chen Wudi was, everyone had just met him, so who knew if he was a good actor? Of course, if Chen Wudi really contacted Ren Xiaosu with other purposes, he did not have a suitable motive. Right now, the Qing group is probably the one that is most interested in Ren Xiaosu. No, strictly speaking, the Qing group is more interested in Su Xianchu. So Chen Wudi is not sent by the Qing group. "Master, you are awake," Chen Wudi said. Ren Xiaosu asked curiously, "How long have you slept? Aren't you sleepy?" "No," Chen Wudi shook his head and said, "Since I found out that I am the reincarnation of the Monkey King, I only sleep 3 or 4 hours a day, which is equivalent to sleeping a whole night before." "Okay," Ren Xiaosu nodded. This is similar to him. He also only needs to sleep 3 or 4 hours a day now. "Liu, Lao Wang, you two go to sleep, I will take your place." "How about Master, you sleep a little longer," Chen Wudi said, "I will watch over you." "No need," Ren Xiaosu shook his head. "How old are you this year?" "Thousands of years." Chen Wuti was not sure either. After all, I am not sure how long I lived before. I am talking about this life. Ren Xiaosu said unhappily. He found that he had to beat around the bush to communicate with Chen Wuti. Oh, 22 years old, Chen Wuti said. Ren Xiaosu thought that this person who was 5 years older than him had suddenly become his apprentice. He asked curiously, were you captured by the private army and sent to the mental hospital? When Zhang Baojin was captured, Wang Fuge got the news that the private army captured 3 extraordinary people that night and threw them into the newly established mental hospital, and also transported a lot of medical equipment. No, Chen Wuti shook his head and said, I was sent there a few years ago. I said I was the reincarnation of the Monkey King, but they didn't believe it. I don't know what happened some time ago, but they suddenly transferred me to a new hospital and drew blood from me. Then do you know Zhang Baojin? Ren Xiaosu asked curiously. The one who blew bubbles. Chen Wuti's eyes lit up. I know him, he's in the ward next to me. There was another patient before, but I don't know where he went later. With this, Ren Xiaosu confirmed that Chen Wuti was indeed from the mental hospital and stayed with Zhang Baojin. It's just that he originally thought that the people in the barrier would dissect Zhang Baojin and the others, but now it seems that they just drew some blood? No, according to what Chen Wuti said, there were originally 3 extraordinary people locked up together, but one disappeared. The one who disappeared. I'm afraid he's dead. What are your plans for the future? Ren Xiaosu asked. To accompany you, master, to the west to obtain the scriptures, Chen Wuti said as a matter of course. Ren Xiaosu felt very awkward after hearing this. He thought about it and said, what if I don't go to the west to obtain the scriptures? This sentence really stumped Chen Wuti. If he didn't go to the west to obtain the scriptures, what else could he do? Over the years, what he thought about every day was to find his master to go to the west to obtain the scriptures, and to eliminate demons and violence along the way. As a result, now his master said he would not go to the west. Chen Wuti hesitated for a long time and said, no, you must go. Ren Xiaosu. Goddamn, I must go. I also have to know where the west is, and Zhang Jinglan didn't mention it. Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked, do you know where the west is? Chen Wuti was stunned again. I don't know. Well, that's easy. In fact, Ren Xiaosu had long realized that Chen Wuti had not read the original Journey to the West, and it was just hearsay that led him to have such a heroic dream. People who have read the original will understand that the image of Sun Wukong in the original is not that tall. So Chen Wuti didn't know where the West was, and he might not even know what was in the West. The only thing he remembered was that the Monkey King was very powerful and a hero, and he had to accompany his master to the west to obtain the scriptures. If his master didn't want to go to the west to obtain the scriptures, he had to send them to his master. Ren Xiaosu thought it was good that Chen Wuti didn't know what Sun Wukong was like in the original, because sometimes, the world needs such a hero. Even Ren Xiaosu himself liked the storyteller's version more. In that version, Sun Wukong stepped on colorful clouds, wearing golden armor, like a god. Ren Xiaosu looked around. Thousands of people were sleeping on the ground in the wilderness. There were only a few campfires in the camp. The black sky was like a shadow, and the wind in early winter was getting colder. These refugees had experienced such huge setbacks. They had to travel for 2 days and still had to endure hunger. They were already very fragile and on the verge of collapse. Then, with a cold wind tonight, I'm afraid many people won't be able to get up tomorrow morning. Fever, diarrhea, colds, and decreased cardiopulmonary function are all normal symptoms after catching a cold. In this wilderness, the difficulties faced by humans are far more than just wild animals. There are also diseases everywhere. With so many people fleeing, it would be great if half of them could reach Barrier 109. If they encounter experimental subjects and wolves, there will be even fewer, or even all of them will be wiped out. Chapter 119 Disasters. The next morning, just as Ren Xiaosu expected, many people felt weak and achy when they got up from the ground. The price they paid for the long journey and the cold they caught was completely shattered. Some people were in better physical condition and could withstand it, but a small number of people could not bear it. Ren Xiaosu found that the muscles of the people in the barrier were not very strong, at least not like the refugees in the market town. Even women like Sister Xiaoi were stronger than them. At this time, the crowd who had a bonfire to keep warm yesterday showed a difference, and even the group of students that Zhang Wude had were fine. Let's go quickly. Ren Xiaosu stood up and looked around. This place has formed an outbreak area. If we don't leave quickly, we may be infected. These people are hopeless. Master, saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. Chen Wuti said, we can't leave them alone. The west is just ahead, Ren Xiaosu said as he walked. I'm going to the west to get the scriptures. If you want to stay, then stay. Chen Wuti was stunned for a moment. He thought for a long time before finally catching up. It seemed that escorting his master to the west to get the scriptures should be a higher priority for him. Seeing Chen Wuti catching up, Ren Xiaosu was slightly relieved. He was really worried that Chen Wuti would foolishly save those hundreds of people. How to save them? Wang Fuge still had some antibiotics, but the problem was that what could one person do with the medicine he carried, and that was the capital that Wang Fuge had saved all his life? How could he selflessly give it to these people? They stood up and prepared to leave, and Jiang Wu immediately organized the students to catch up. Anyway, whatever Ren Xiaosu did now, Jiang Wu would take the students to do. Everyone looked at the sick people around them, and their mood was inevitably a little heavy, but what could they do? Some students were kinder, and they said to Jiang Wu, Teacher, let's stay and help everyone, shall we? Jiang Wu gritted her teeth and struggled for a long time, and suddenly said firmly, No, we must learn to protect ourselves first. Maybe what the teacher is teaching you now is not correct, but you must follow me now. The world has forced a gentle and kind female teacher to this point, but she does not regret it. Follow up, everyone, don't fall behind. Do you remember what the wild vegetables we ate yesterday look like? You must pick them when you see them on the roadside, Jiang Wu said. But that wild vegetable is so bad, a student muttered with his head down. No matter how bad it tastes, you have to eat it, Jiang Wu said firmly. As soon as Ren Xiaosu left, all the refugees who could still move followed him. Because they didn't have any goals now, they just knew that they had to follow if someone took the lead. In the end, only the sick people were left lying on the ground. At this time, Ren Xiaosu was a little confused. He already knew that the wolves had been following behind him, but they never attacked them. Why was that? This crowd was obviously not a threat to them. Could it be that there were too many people that made them stay away? What about the experimental subjects? Ren Xiaosu hoped that they followed the Qing group in Jingshan to the north, so that he would not have to worry too much about the threat from the experimental subjects. Of course, it would be even better if the experimental subjects died in the volcanic eruption. Ren Xiaosu still couldn't confirm how many experimental subjects there were, nor who made them. He just understood that this world was far from as simple as he imagined. Walking on the road at this time, the refugees basically avoided Ren Xiaosu and his friends. Ren Xiaosu deliberately never showed his extraordinariness to the refugees, because they still had to go to the 109th barrier. Who knows how the 109th barrier treats extraordinary people? What if they arrest extraordinary people as they see them like the 113th barrier? Now there is a hidden danger. Chen Wuti has exposed the fact that he is an extraordinary person. This makes Ren Xiaosu a little entangled. He can only take one step at a time. Suddenly, Ren Xiaosu saw another off-road vehicle parked in front of him. He found it funny at the time. When the Qing group passed by, there seemed to be only 3 off-road vehicles and 2 troop transport trucks. Now they were mostly broken. Yesterday, they saw an off-road vehicle and a truck on the road, and now there was another one. Ren Xiaosu suspected that if they hurried up, they might see people from the Qing group in front. After all, if 3 vehicles were broken, there would not be enough space for so many people, so there must be people walking. Maybe Luolan would let the soldiers walk slowly, and then he would drive an off-road vehicle and a truck to the 109th rampart first. When the setting sun shone in the evening, the front of the refugee team suddenly became chaotic. Someone shouted, "Look! It's the Qing group." Someone shouted, "Go find them for help." Finally joined the army. They did not consider whether the combat brigade was willing to join them, and ran forward frantically, as if they had grabbed a life-saving straw. Ren Xiaosu heard the noise and looked up. He suddenly saw Luolan and several hundred soldiers from the Qing Corporation sitting in the orange-red sunset. How did this fat guy just get here? And Ren Xiaosu always felt that Luolan's pants were a bit strange. After a closer look, weren't they just 2 car seat covers sewn together? Exclamation mark. Luolan was directing the soldiers to camp at this time. As a result, he looked back and was almost shocked. There were densely packed people not far behind him. He quickly said to the combatants, "Hurry up, Those who have guns, take out your guns to prevent these refugees from crashing into our camp. The combatants of the Qing Corporation have high combat literacy. As soon as Luo Lan spoke, he heard the sound of a bolt being pulled. When the refugees saw that the muzzles of their guns were pointed at them, they stopped and seemed a little at a loss. A middle-aged man shouted across the air, "Boss Luo, I'm Xiao Zhang from the planning department. Have you seen me?" Luo Lan pouted and shouted, "You are so old and still call me Xiao Zhang, aren't you ashamed? Get back, if you take another step forward, we will shoot." Now none of the refugees dared to move. In this wilderness, the Qing Consortium didn't care who they were. They treated all those who were not their own as enemies. Ren Xiaosu hid behind the crowd and watched the scene. He actually hoped that the Qing Consortium would not contact the refugees. After all, the Qing Consortium was likely to arrest him now. Of course, Ren Xiaosu thought that these people didn't have much extra energy now. Seeing that many soldiers in the Qing Consortium were bandaged, it seemed that they were injured when escaping from the barrier. But Ren Xiaosu was a little curious. Luo Lan didn't abandon the soldiers and run away. This surprised him. Chapter 120 Where's the West Heaven? The refugees and the Qing group's combat brigade eventually formed a potential confrontation. The refugees did not intend to attack the combat brigade, but they just could not accept this result for a while. Everyone ran over excitedly to take refuge, but was blocked by guns. In fact, Ren Xiaosu felt that there was nothing wrong with the Qing group's approach, and he would do the same. However, the refugees felt that although they could not get close, it was also good to follow the Qing group. They rested on the spot, and when the Qing group set off, they followed the Qing group silently. At least the Qing group knew how to get to the 109th barrier. And now the Qing group's vehicles obviously could not accommodate them, so a large part of the Qing group could only walk forward, and everyone did not have to worry about being left behind by the Qing group. "Xiaosu, we are so close to the Qing group, will there be any danger?" Wang Fuge asked worriedly. After all, Ren Xiaosu killed several people who were stalking when the earthquake just happened. It should be fine. Ren Xiaosu secretly glanced at the Qing group. Now there is a clearing between the Qing group and the refugees. It seems that the Qing group does not intend to have any contact with the refugees. This is good, because in this way, the Qing group will not know that Ren Xiaosu is here. "You stay here safely," Ren Xiaosu said cautiously. "If the situation is not right, we will run to the wilderness. According to the current situation, it is better for us to stay in the large group for the time being. I am a little worried that the wolves will want to pick on the weak if we leave the team." The wolf pack did not dare to move the large group of thousands of people, but if Ren Xiaosu and his team left the team, it would be hard to say. In fact, Luo Lan did not have the intention to capture Ren Xiaosu. When Qing Zhen wanted to call him on the satellite phone to explain the capture of Ren Xiaosu, the volcanic cloud happened to block the signal. When Qing Zhen walked to the place where the signal was usually, the 113 barrier had been broken. Luo Lan did not bring the satellite phone when he fled in a hurry, so Luo Lan and others are now in a state of disconnection. "Okay, I'll listen to you," Wang Fuge nodded. Ren Xiaosu went to collect dry firewood as usual and brought Chen Wudi with him. He didn't want to order Chen Wudi around, but mainly to prevent Chen Wudi from joining the team with ulterior motives. Ren Xiaosu was the only one in the team who could check and balance Chen Wudi, so it was better for him to bring Chen Wudi with him. It would be a bit tiring to always be on guard, but Ren Xiaosu felt that it was not wrong to be cautious. There was still a long time to go. If it was proved that Chen Wudi really had no other purpose, Ren Xiaosu would naturally accept him calmly. On the way to collect dry firewood, Ren Xiaosu found that the refugees had learned their lesson today. They knew that it would be difficult to reach the 109th barrier without a bonfire for warmth, so many people went to collect dry firewood today, and even shamelessly asked people to borrow firewood. The scene of thousands of people collecting firewood together was very spectacular. Ren Xiaosu even lamented that he might have come out too late. He didn't expect this to happen, so he was a few minutes late, which resulted in Ren Xiaosu having no firewood to collect after walking for a long time. Chen Wudi asked from the side, "Master, didn't you say in the morning that the Western Paradise was just ahead? How come we haven't arrived yet after walking for a whole day?" Ren Xiaosu was speechless. He thought for a long time and said, "The Western Paradise, it has moved." Chen Wudi was unhappy. "Master, do you think I'm stupid?" "Alice," Ren Xiaosu sighed in his heart. This answer really can't fool even a fool. Woody, Ren Xiaosu said earnestly, changing the subject. Besides accompanying me to the Western paradise to obtain the scriptures, do you have any other wishes? At this time, Ren Xiaosu also wanted to talk more with Chen Wudi. After all, too much talk will lead to mistakes. As long as Chen Wudi's intentions are not pure and he talks enough, he will definitely reveal some flaws. However, he suddenly found that Chen Wudi was actually shy. I do have other wishes. What wish? Ren Xiaosu asked curiously. Find a girl named Zixia, Chen Wudi said solemnly. I have two things to do after my reincarnation. One is to escort you, my master, to obtain the scriptures, and the other is to find Zixia. Ren Xiaosu turned his head and stared at Chen Wudi beside him. Which version of Journey to the West did you read? He carefully recalled the Journey to the West he had read, but he didn't remember that there was a girl named Zixia. Suddenly, Jiang Wu came from the opposite side of them. She brought a lot of dry firewood with her students. Jiang Wu's eyes lit up when he saw Ren Xiaosu. You don't have to pick it up. We will pick up a lot for you. As the saying goes, there is strength in numbers. Jiang Wu and 28 students were much more efficient in picking up dry firewood than Ren Xiaosu alone. Not only that, Ren Xiaosu estimated that the dry firewood they carried should be enough to light 4 or 5 bonfires. Ren Xiaosu nodded and did not refuse. It was a good thing that the other party was willing to give back, and he did not mind accepting the other party's feedback. Several female students blushed and looked at Chen Wudi. They walked over hesitantly and suddenly said to Chen Wudi, "You are so handsome." Chen Wudi was stunned for a moment and replied, "Thank you, female donor." The 3 words female donor were like a basin of cold water, which immediately extinguished the girl's spring thoughts. But Ren Xiaosu ignored them, and walked straight forward, shouting as he walked, come on, I found something good." Sometimes the gifts of nature are very generous. As long as you have a pair of eyes that are good at discovering, you will definitely not starve to death. When Ren Xiaosu was about to turn around and go back, he suddenly saw that the weeds in front of him were not right. After a closer look, he found that it was a field of sweet potatoes. I don't know how long this piece of sweet potato has been growing wildly here, and now is the best season for sweet potatoes. Ren Xiaosu turned around and said to Jiang Wu, "What are you doing? Take the students to dig." Oh, Jiang Wu also reacted immediately and hurriedly called on the students to start. To be honest, if it weren't for Ren Xiaosu, she wouldn't have known that there were still a lot of sweet potatoes buried underground. They had to hurry up, otherwise when other refugees reacted, they wouldn't be able to grab a few. There were too many refugees. While Jiang Wu led the students to dig sweet potatoes, he secretly looked at Ren Xiaosu. This boy always gave people surprises, and these surprises gradually turned into a strange sense of dependence. At this moment, Jiang Wu even felt that as long as they followed Ren Xiaosu, they would definitely be able to reach barrier number 109 alive. In less than a minute, other refugees discovered the situation here, and everyone rushed over. No one dared to snatch sweet potatoes from Ren Xiaosu, but this sweet potato field was very large, and there was still a lot of place to dig. Ren Xiaosu didn't care about others. He and Chen Wudi dug more than 30 sweet potatoes before finally stopping. These sweet potatoes were scary big, at least they didn't have to worry about food for the next few days. When he stood up and looked around, he suddenly found that the sweet potato field was almost plucked by the refugees. Even locusts are not so scary. Because the update was done at midnight yesterday, if it was updated at 1800 hours today, the time span in between would be too large, so it was updated in advance. Starting tomorrow, the update time will still be 1800 hours. I would like to thank Faustnoy for becoming the new Silver Alliance of this book, and thank Handsome Feet Smell, One Poor, Gui is how is so handsome, my name is Meow Sauce, Almud, Murans, Hansu, Alpaca, Zio Xiaoxu, Nanjingjin, Niergao, Zhangui Ayu, Zia Oxeo in Summer, Super Fighting Tyrannosaurus, I am Bing Meo, Running Wild Wolf, Poems that Shock Ghosts and Gods, and Sharp Knife for becoming the new alliance leaders of this book. Today, I will start to kill books and offer sacrifices to the gods. Today's recommendation is Dungeon Players. The Dungeon Lord summons Earth players to build a dungeon. Chapter 121 House Arrest. Tonight's night didn't seem so hard to endure. Thousands of people gathered around their campfires to keep warm, and countless sweet potatoes were thrown into the campfires. Gradually, The whole camp was filled with an intoxicating sweet smell. In the night, countless lights seemed to be suddenly lit in this dark wilderness, and the yellow flames flickered. Many people looked expectantly at the unripened sweet potatoes in the campfire. The sweet potatoes looked as big as wine bottles, but Chen Wuti ate 3 sweet potatoes in one breath. Ren Xiaosu was shocked when he saw this scene. He suddenly felt that Chen Wuti came to him to be his master, and it was very likely that he wanted to eat him out of money. Chen Wuti wiped his mouth and looked at the people around him: Ren Xiaosu, Wang Fuge, Yan Limuan, Sister Xiaoyu, and Wang Dalan. What are you looking at? Ren Xiaosu glanced at him. Master, do you think our team is still missing something? Chen Wuti said. Ren Xiaosu was stunned for a moment. What's missing? Chen Wuti's eyes wandered back and forth between Yan Limuan and Xiaoyuji. We still need a white dragon horse. Yan Limuan and Xiaoyuji were not feeling well at the time, but Chen Wuti also had his own principles. He said, you don't have to look at me like that. Neither of you is a white dragon horse. I won't recognize you randomly. At this moment, Wang Fuge and Wang Dalan felt uncomfortable again. Could it be that they were really Beiji and Shasang? Ren Xiaosu felt a little melancholy. His team was originally quite normal. Why did it suddenly change after Chen Wuti came in? However, what surprised Ren Xiaosu was that although Chen Wuti was crazy, he actually had his own internal logic. Why did he recognize him as his master? He ignored Chen Wuti, but silently calculated everyone's appetite. At present, the sweet potatoes should be enough for about 2 days, and sweet potatoes might not go bad even if they were left for a whole winter. It would be a bit tiring to carry them on the road. After all, sweet potatoes are still quite heavy. Now they were only about 100 kilometers away from Barrier 109. If a normal person worked 8 hours a day, they could walk about 40 kilometers. If they worked harder, they could walk 50 kilometers. But Wang Fuge, Wang Dalan, and Sister Xiaoyu were probably not able to handle it. Sister Xiaoyu used needle and thread to pick out the blisters on Yan Limuan's feet in the afternoon. Yan Limuan looked at Sister Xiaoyu's profile quietly at that time, and suddenly felt that it was great to have such a sister. At this time, the blisters on the feet of the refugees had rotted and scabbed again, and then rotted again after scabbing. Escaping was far from being as simple as how many kilometers can you walk in a day. Therefore, Ren Xiaosu estimated that it would take at least 3 to 4 days for them to reach Barrier 109. They could save their sweet potatoes and not even have to go out to find food again. Suddenly, Ren Xiaosu heard Jiang Wu's voice not far behind him. Everyone hold on a little longer, we will soon be able to reach Barrier 109. Everyone must take the sweet potatoes we dug this afternoon with you. You may be tired from walking, but it is better than being hungry. The students have passed the stage of homesickness and fragility. These flowers in the greenhouse are learning to be strong. Someone suddenly asked, Teacher, can we really reach Barrier 109 safely? Of course we can, Jiang Wu said, as long as we follow that boy, we will definitely be able to do it. At this time, a student winked and reminded Jiang Wu to look behind him. Jiang Wu turned around and happened to see Ren Xiaosu's gaze. With a cry, she quickly turned her face back. It seemed that the bonfire was burning too vigorously, which made her cheeks particularly red. Jiang Wu lowered his voice and said to the students, Why didn't you remind me? Haha, the students laughed, the teacher blushed. Looking at this scene, Ren Xiaosu suddenly felt that humans should be the animals who can find joy in suffering. As long as they can see a little hope, they are willing to live. After a while, Jiang Wu's students began to sing in a low voice, like a ballad on campus. Ren Xiaosu was a little lost in thought as he listened to the songs. He had also wanted to live in a carefree barrier and enjoy all the comforts. Of course, life in the barrier might not be that comfortable now. In the distance, in the headquarters of the Qing group, Luo Lan smelled the sweet potato aroma wafting from afar. While eating the individual rations stored in the car by the combat brigade, he sighed, It's still these poor people who know how to live. Luo Lan's confidant next to him asked, Boss, do you think your brother will send someone to rescue you? It's hard to say. Luo Lan was a little melancholy. I'm a little worried about him. He was still in Jingshan when something went wrong. Now Qing Zhen's life or death is uncertain. Luo Lan's confidant whispered, I don't think Boss Qing will be okay. He is a man who always does things with certainty. What's certain? Luo Lan sighed. Didn't there an accident this time? Of course, earthquakes and volcanic eruptions are natural disasters and force majeure. Do you think that barrier number 112 will have the same problem as ours? The confidant asked. After all, the distance between the two sides is about the same. If we can't withstand the earthquake here, the same will happen over there. That's right, Luolan thought for a moment and said, I'm afraid that barrier number 112 has also collapsed. The Qing group has lost 2 barriers at once. Qingzhen will probably be severely punished within the group. But this is not our fault, the confidant whispered. No matter who comes, it will still collapse. Qingzhen has made too many enemies within the group, Luolan said, and he killed a lot of people from other groups a while ago. The group may be worried that he will be difficult to control, so they will leave him alone. But this is all temporary, because the Qing group still needs Qingzhen to do things, and other people are not as good as Qingzhen, or not as cruel as him. At this moment, Qingzhen was walking on the mountain road. His face had been blackened by the black smoke from the volcanic eruption. His personality had already collapsed. Su Man said with a satellite phone on the side, Boss, the chairman of the group asked you to answer the phone. At this time, they had walked out of the coverage of the volcanic cloud, and the satellite phone had been restored to its function. Tell them that I'm busy, Qingzhen said unhappily. Su Man was embarrassed for a moment, but still conveyed the original words. After a few seconds, he looked at Qingzhen. They require you to go to Barrier 111 for investigation immediately after leaving Jingshan. You are not allowed to leave Barrier 111. Barrier 112 and Barrier 113 are gone. Tell them, I know, Qingzhen said nonchalantly. After Su Man replied, he hung up the phone. He said to Qingzhen, are they going to put you under house arrest? I haven't been back to Barrier 111 for a long time, Qingzhen said. Call Lu Yuan at Barrier 109 and ask him to send someone to search for Luolan. Su Man hesitated and said, that is the barrier controlled by the Li group. As the manager of the barrier, Lu Yuan may not have much say. We always have the power to send some private troops. Barrier 109 is closest to Barrier 113, so if Luolan is okay, he will definitely run to Lu Yuan. Qingzhen looked back at the gray sky behind him and said, tell him that if he can't find Luolan, he will die. Su Man suddenly felt that Qingzhen didn't look like someone who would be placed under house arrest and investigated by the group, and the relationship between the two brothers Qingzhen and Luolan was better than the rumors. Chapter 122 Really Stupid or Pretending to be Stupid? Luolan didn't know that Qingzhen had already sent people to look for him, nor did he know that Qingzhen was facing suppression from the chairman's group in the consortium. He only knew that the sweet potato smell coming from next door was really fragrant. He looked at his confidant and said, that? Tang Zhou, check if there are any left in the sweet potato field. The confidant named Tang Zhou said, why don't we just go and grab some? You know shit, Luolan cursed, am I that kind of person? If the consortium asked me to kill someone from the fire company, I wouldn't even blink an eye, but if I robbed a group of refugees, what kind of person would I be? But the sweet potato field has been dug up by them, Tang Zhou said in embarrassment. There were more than 3,000 refugees, and the sweet potato field was not planted on a large scale. It was just wildly grown for who knows how long, and it grew to this size. Those refugees had been hungry for a few days and finally saw something edible, so they would definitely dig until it was all dug up. If they couldn't eat it, they could take it on the road, at least they wouldn't be hungry for the next few days. Only those who have experienced hunger will understand what it feels like to be extremely hungry. Only a few days after the escape, all the refugees have lost weight. Only Ren Xiaosu and his group seem to have not changed much. Luolan hesitated for a long time. Go, who of you has money on you? Go buy some from them. Luolan didn't have time to bring anything with him when he escaped this time, otherwise he wouldn't even have pants to wear. The soldiers of other combat brigades were almost the same. The earthquake came too suddenly. Those who had the energy to go back to the house to get money at that time basically buried it directly inside. The soldiers looked at each other, and everyone pooled together and finally got together 4,000 yuan, which was the change that everyone usually carried in their pockets. Luolan looked at the money, his eyes sparkled. Tang Zhou, take someone to buy it, be careful not to let them attack by surprise. Got it, Tang Zhou took a combat team over. At this time, the surviving combat team had completed the reorganization. The wounded did not need to participate in the battle, but at least 2/3 of the more than 200 people were still combat ready. Luolan also said, buy it at 50 times the usual price, Don't embarrass the Qing Consortium, we don't take advantage of others. At this time, food is obviously more important than money, but whether 50 times the price is worth it is purely a matter of opinion. Everyone will return to human civilization one day. Maybe if they are faster, they can reach barrier 109 in 3 days. At that time, everything will cost money. Although the relationship between the Qing Consortium and the Li Consortium is average, the Qing Consortium has some commercial industries in barrier 109, so the banknotes issued by the Qing Consortium are not without purchasing power. The relationship between the consortiums is very complicated. It is not that there is no infiltration of other consortiums in the barriers controlled by the Li Consortium. More often, the distribution of power between the consortiums is more like a state of interlacing. The different locations of the barriers mean that the natural resources they control are different, so the consortiums also need to exchange what they have. For example, the areas controlled by the Qing Consortium are mainly vanadium, titanium, magnetite, rock salt, mirabilite, lead, zinc, sulfur, iron ore, asbestos, mica, gold, phosphorus, cement, limestone, coal mines, and natural gas, while the southern areas controlled by the Li Consortium are mainly non-ferrous metals and coal mines, and the planting industry is rich in tobacco leaves. But the most important thing is that the Qing Consortium is located in a basin with a suitable climate and has mastered the planting resources of food crops such as rice, wheat, corn, soybeans, and cash crops such as tea. Most of the time, the Li Consortium needs to buy food from the Qing Consortium. They also grow it themselves, but it is not enough. Every consortium attaches great importance to food, but it is not because you value it that the land you control is suitable for growing food. Nature will not make any changes because of human will. Not long after, Tang Zhou brought people back with a lot of sweet potatoes. When buying, the refugees looked at these soldiers coming with guns and live ammunition, and few people dared to refuse the request of the Qing Consortium, and the price offered by the Qing Consortium was not low. Luo Lan excitedly commanded the soldiers to throw all the sweet potatoes into the fire, and then a group of men were waiting eagerly. Luo Lan counted the number of people, and then counted the number of sweet potatoes, and then sighed, "Each person eats half, no one should eat more, and the wounded can eat the whole." After they were roasted, Tang Zhou took a stick and pulled one out of the fire and gave it to Luo Lan. "Boss, you can eat this." Luo Lan picked it up, broke it in half and handed it to Tang Zhou, half for each person. "No need to do this, boss." Tang Zhou hesitated a little. "You will only eat half too. Don't talk nonsense, take it quickly, it's hot." Luo Lan looked at the others. "I don't have time to talk so much to you now. When we get to the 109th barrier, I will invite everyone to enjoy it together. Hey, we are all people who have escaped a disaster. Those who survive a disaster will surely have good fortune in the future." The soldiers of the combat brigade ate sweet potatoes silently without saying a word. Ren Xiaosu had been observing the movements of the Qing Consortium, but suddenly a woman among the refugees screamed, followed by a loud slap. They all turned their heads to look, and suddenly found a middle-aged man tearing a woman apart and saying, "Why are you pretending to be innocent after eating the sweet potatoes I dug? Your man died in the barrier a long time ago. If I hadn't helped you, would you be alive now? I said I would give you the money for the sweet potatoes when I got to the 109th barrier." The woman said with gritted teeth. "What are you going to give me? Everyone will still have nothing when we get to the 109th barrier." Ren Xiaosu curled his lips. These two people actually knew each other. I'm afraid that the man wanted to make a move just now but was slapped. Now, in anger, he dragged the woman to a secluded wilderness. The woman cried but couldn't struggle, and everyone else watched indifferently. However, at this moment, a loud shout suddenly rang out beside Ren Xiaosu. "Stop. It turns out that you, the Golden Leopard King, are causing trouble." This shout made Ren Xiaosu's head buzz. He looked at Chen Wudi with a confused face, only to see that Chen Wudi had already rushed out with a golden hoop. The middle-aged man didn't react either, and was directly hit to the ground by Chen Wudi with a stick, almost vomiting blood. This was because Chen Wudi was holding back his strength, otherwise the man would probably have been hit to death on the spot. But before Chen Wudi could enjoy the sense of accomplishment of exorcising demons, the woman who was dragged out at the beginning became angry. She looked at Chen Wudi. "Why did you hit him? Get out." Chen Wudi felt a little wronged, but he couldn't figure out what was going on, so he could only walk back to Ren Xiaosu with his head down. Everyone looked at this scene in amazement. Only Ren Xiaosu, who had read the original Journey to the West, felt that something was wrong. The Golden Leopard King was the demon king of this Heiyu Lianhuan cave in the hidden Mist Mountain in the Journey to the West. In the original book, the Golden Leopard King liked the farmer's wife and took her for himself. However, the reason why Ren Xiaosu felt something was wrong was because he found that whenever Chen Wudi wanted to fight someone, he would give the other party a demon name, such as Xiao Zuanfang or Golden Leopard King. When he didn't want to fight, the other party was a normal human being. This seemed to be the logic of a mental patient looking for reasons and positions for himself. He was the Monkey King, so he had to fight monsters. Ren Xiaosu stared at Chen Wudi in a daze as he returned to his side. He thought for a long time and teased, "Disciple, if you encounter hundreds of enemies in the future, what if you don't have enough monster names? After all, there are only so many monsters in Journey to the West. After fighting them, there will be no more to fight." Chen Wudi fell into deep thought. It seemed to be the case. After a while, Chen Wudi decided to lower his principles and said, "It's okay, the monster's name can be reused." Ren Xiaosu. Is he really stupid or just pretending to be stupid? Exclamation mark. Did you agree not to recognize random names? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123 Nightfall. Master, Chen Wudi sat beside the campfire and stared at it blankly. You said that I had already defeated the Golden Leopard King, but that woman still wanted me to get out. Ren Xiaosu is silent. He wanted to tell Chen Wudi that human nature is complicated and some people are not worth saving, but he was worried about destroying the innocence in Chen Wudi's heart. If there really was a Monkey King in this world who was persuaded by Ren Xiaosu to become immortal, then Ren Xiaosu would not know whether he had done a good thing or a bad thing. However, at this time, Wang Fuge laughed happily beside him and said, "You are still too nosy. If you use the 8 words none of your business and none of my business well in your life, you can save a lot of troubles." What do you mean? Chen Wudi was stunned for a moment and looked up and asked. Look, Wang Fuge said earnestly, why do you have to take care of this matter when you have nothing to do? If you don't take care of this matter. Chen Wudi interrupted, it's none of your business. Wang Fuge. Ha ha ha, Ren Xiaosu, Yan Liun, and Sister Xian Oiwa laughed so hard, but fortunately Chen Wudi had already learned the usage of the 4 words none of your business. As for whether he could learn none of my business, Ren Xiaosu thought it depended on whether Chen Wudi was willing to learn. The next morning, Ren Xiaosu and his friends got up early to roast sweet potatoes and eat them. Many people would rather not eat and sleep a little longer, but in fact, if you don't eat in the morning in this season, your body will be cold all day. Ren Xiaosu saw that the Qing group had also gotten up. After all, combat personnel are different from refugees. They have discipline. The situation of the refugees is much better today. Some people are still sick and have fever, but the number is not too large. When the Qing group moved, the refugees also moved. Everyone followed the Qing group silently, determined to follow. Ren Xiaosu glanced at the crowd of refugees. He found that the Golden Leopard King who was knocked down by Chen Wudi yesterday was lying on the ground dying. The woman had already mixed in the crowd and no one knew where she had gone. Lying here without anyone to help her, she was doomed to die. In fact, according to this unlucky guy, he should have taken good care of the woman in the barrier, including the fact that the woman was able to escape from the barrier because of his help. But when he was in trouble, the woman decisively abandoned him. In this world, it is hard to tell who should die. At this time, Ren Xiaosu looked at the Qing group. The only 2 remaining cars of the Qing group were driving slowly, and those who could not get on the car followed the car on foot. But Ren Xiaosu was a little surprised. He suddenly found that Luolan was also walking on the ground instead of sitting in the car. What's the situation? Is he trying to strengthen his body? Then Ren Xiaosu observed carefully. What kind of soldier could sit in the car? There couldn't be someone more important than Luolan. Ren Xiaosu was stunned by this observation. He saw that the cargo box of the troop transport truck and the off-road vehicle were full of wounded soldiers with bandages and half a truck of ammunition. Guns and ammunition must not be thrown away. Even if you can only walk, you have to carry these things with you. They are the capital to save your life. and those soldiers helped Luolan break through the siege under the obstruction of the human-faced insects, so Luolan let them take the car and didn't take it himself. Seeing that there were still some wounded walking on the ground, it was because the car couldn't fit them, and those with flexible legs and feet didn't get on the car. But these wounded who didn't get on the car were not depressed or resentful. Ren Xiaosu even felt that they were talking and laughing while walking. Originally, Ren Xiaosu thought that Luolan would drive directly to abandon the wounded and rush to barrier number 109 first, but the facts were beyond his expectations. These brothers Qingzhen and Luolan. No wonder even the extraordinary people were willing to die for Qingzhen. In fact, what Ren Xiaosu didn't know was that the dead superhuman was not hired by Qingzhen. He was originally a soldier in his combat brigade. After awakening his superhumanity, he became Qingzhen's personal bodyguard and was loyal. That night, Ren Xiaosu always had an inexplicable sense of uneasiness, so much so that Sister Xiaoyu could see his uneasiness. Sister Xiaoyu asked curiously, "What's wrong, Xiaosu?" "Nothing." Ren Xiaosu looked at the campfire and shook his head. "I always feel something is wrong." But he couldn't tell what was wrong. That feeling was like returning to the crisis-ridden Jingshan. The night was as dark as ink, as if a cage was descending. "Let's go." Ren Xiaosu stamped out their campfire. "We can't stay here tonight." After thinking about it, he still had to believe in his intuition, because this intuition had saved him more than once. Zhang Jinglin once said that before the disaster, scientists had proved that the sixth sense was real. When Ren Xiaosu stood up and stamped out the bonfire, the refugees beside him all looked at him in confusion. Only Jiang Wu reacted the fastest. Before the others understood what was going on, she had already urged the students to follow. Although she didn't know what was going on, she just followed Ren Xiaosu. Someone wondered, "What's wrong with that boy?" "I don't know." "Brother, where are we going?" Yan Liwen asked. "I don't know," Ren Xiaosu said. "Let's leave here first." But just when they had just left the refugee team and were about to bypass the Qing Consortium's base, Ren Xiaosu suddenly heard the faint sound of iron chains crossing the ground behind him. Moreover, the sound was getting closer and closer. "Run!" Ren Xiaosu roared in her low voice. Among the countless refugees, he was probably the only one who knew what was behind him. When he saw the densely packed experimental subjects rushing towards him in Jingshan, he instinctively retreated and fled. For this, he even went back to face the Qing Consortium. At that time, Ren Xiaosu had no way of knowing how many experimental subjects there were. He only knew that he would die if he didn't run. Over the past 2 days, the wolves and the experimental subjects have been a shadow in Ren Xiaosu's heart. As long as he doesn't reach the 109th rampart, the shadow in his heart will not dissipate. He had hoped that the dead land of the rampart would attract the experimental subjects and the wolves, but now it seems that hope has been dashed. They can only hurry up and flee. Ren Xiaosu was just a little confused. The experimental subjects were originally active in the woods, so how did they all run out? Exclamation mark. Wang Fuge and others didn't know why Ren Xiaosu said he wanted to run, but they had already subconsciously chosen to believe Ren Xiaosu. "What should we do with these sweet potatoes?" Wang Dalin shouted while running. Wang Fuge turned back and waved his hand to knock all the sweet potatoes in Wang Dalin's arms away. "If you lose your life, what will you eat with sweet potatoes? Follow Ren Xiaosu and run." At this time, the sound of the iron chains behind the refugees was getting louder and louder. Everyone looked back and saw the experimental subjects crawling on the ground like spiders, approaching quickly, like ghosts. It was not until this moment that they began to scream in fear and then fled madly. But the refugee crowd was too large. The people in front didn't know what was going on, but the people behind had already started to run for their lives. The crowds collided with each other and knocked down many people at once. Horrifying screams were heard from the back of the crowd. Hundreds of experimental subjects had rushed into the crowd and started to fight and hunt frantically. Once someone was killed by them, they would pounce on others without hesitation, as if they wanted to kill all the refugees. When Ren Xiaosu looked back, he suddenly found that there was an upright experimental subject behind those experimental subjects, staring at them coldly. At this moment, Ren Xiaosu suddenly realized that these experimental subjects were actually commanded by someone. They had not completely lost their wisdom. The release of the book did disrupt the rhythm of the update time, resulting in a long time difference in the middle. Let's adjust it for another day. It will be 1800 hours tomorrow. It's a bit uncomfortable without a book review in this chapter. If you have any comments, you can leave a message on my Weibo Talking Elbow. Today's new book recommendation, The Disaster of Tomorrow Introduction. The dark and disparate world background has a unique charm, and the protagonist's lazy system prevents the whole from being tense all the time, and has a proper degree of relaxation. Chapter 124. Someone must sacrifice. Because Ren Xiaosu was the first to run for his life, his team had been running ahead of the refugees. During this time, he looked back and vaguely felt that the number of experimental subjects encountered this time was not as many as in Jingshan. Could it be because of the volcanic eruption that they also lost some people? But this is a good thing. Ren Xiaosu hoped that as many of their kind as possible would die in Jingshan. While running wildly with his team, he shouted to the Qing Consortium from a distance, "Don't shoot, run together." Ren Xiaosu was worried that the Qing Consortium would shoot everyone indiscriminately. At this time, Ren Xiaosu frowned. If the Qing Consortium made an attacking posture, he could only use his shadow to force his way out. Chen Wudi looked at Ren Xiaosu and suddenly muttered in a low voice, "Master is so murderous in this life. But it seems to be much better than the indecisiveness in the previous life." At this time, Chen Wudi looked behind him and saw that there was already a world of blood behind them. The experimental subjects were extremely brutal when killing people, and blood splattered everywhere. The cries and screams mixed together, as if there was a purgatory behind them. Pain. This is the pain of the world. The golden hoop in Chen Wudi's hand materialized, and the idea of slaying demons and monsters in his heart was stirring. But there were too many test subjects, and he couldn't beat them all. Ren Xiaosu, who was protecting Sister Xiaoyu and the others in front, didn't see that at this moment. A faint golden shadow on Chen Wudi's body seemed to break out of the cocoon. That was the golden chain mail armor and the phoenix wing purple gold crown recorded in Journey to the West. But before all of this materialized, a golden hoop appeared on his head. Then the golden chain mail armor and the phoenix wing purple gold crown disappeared together. Chen Wudi stood there and watched the extremely ferocious appearance of the test subject. "Forget it, I'd better go to the Heavenly Palace to ask for help. Master, wait for me." After saying that, Chen Wudi turned around and ran. Ren Xiaosu turned around and shouted to Chen Wudi, "Disciple, help everyone with the luggage." At this time of escaping, if Wang Fuge, Wang Dalin, and Xiaoyu were dragged down by the luggage, they might not be able to outrun the refugees. And Chen Wudi was even stronger than Ren Xiaosu, so carrying such a small amount of stuff was no problem at all. At this moment, the Qing Consortium had already discovered the chaos. Although the refugees blocked their vision and made them unclear about what was happening, Luolan did not hesitate at this chaotic moment. He directly ordered all the combat personnel of the Qing Consortium to evacuate quickly. So when the refugees rushed over, the Qing Consortium was still running in the front. Luolan was running for his life while shouting to the people in the car, "You go first, drive fast." The wounded in the car were silent, and someone said, "We can't leave you behind." Luolan panted and said, get out quickly, a group of wounded people, why are you being so pretentious to me?" At this time, the wounded in the car were in a relatively high position. They could already see the experimental subjects behind the refugees harvesting lives with super high efficiency. At the speed of the other party, normal humans would not be able to escape this chase even if they ran to death. It would be better if the experimental subjects could be attracted by the humans who were not running fast behind them. But these experimental subjects did not miss the dead food at all, but wanted to kill everyone. At this time, the legendary theory of you just need to run faster than your teammates is no longer applicable, everyone must die. The wounded did not accept Luolan's order to leave, but stopped the car decisively, and then unloaded the guns and ammunition on the ground. Luolan's confidant Tang Zhou commanded the combat personnel to quickly open a shooting defense line. He shouted, "Come two people. Protect the boss to get on the car and leave." Tang Zhou's choice was correct. Only 1/3 of them could take the car, and the remaining 2/3 could not run faster than these experimental subjects. The refugees died very quickly, and it was impossible to buy them much time. Tang Zhou knew very well that they could not kill the experimental subjects, because when Qingxian caught the first experimental subject, he synchronized the data of the experimental subject to Luolan. Therefore, someone must sacrifice at this time. What are you waiting for? Waiting to die together? Tang Zhou said coldly. He pointed to two younger soldiers and said, "Take the boss away." His choice of these two soldiers meant giving them a way to live, Because they were still young and had not had time to enjoy life. The other soldiers were silent. They also knew the consequences of staying, but no one stood up to oppose Tang Zhou's decision. Fuck, let me go. Luo Lan was carried out by 2 soldiers. He was anxious at the time and tried to break free from the 2 soldiers' grip. Are you trying to rebel? I, Luo Lan, have never been a deserter. Tang Zhou smiled and said, thank you and bless Queen for your care over the years. He said to the 2 young soldiers firmly, hurry up and take the bus to the car. At this time, Ren Xiaosu had just brought Sister Xiaoyu and the others to the front of the Qing group's base, and Zhang Wu also followed closely with his students, but the soldiers of the Qing group did not care about them, but directly let them and some scattered refugees pass through the gaps in the defensive positions. Tang Zhou looked ahead calmly. The refugees were driven by the experimental subjects and were getting closer and closer to them. He had to wait for the best opportunity. Combat teams 1 to 5 are ready to shoot, and the 6th combat team is ready to fill in at any time. The wounded are responsible for passing ammunition. Tang Zhou's calm tone echoed in the soldiers' ears. Tang Zhou opened a box from the ground and took out a rocket-propelled grenade launcher from it. Tang Zhou smiled happily and said, luckily we brought this thing. The refugees were harvested by the experimental subjects in just a few minutes. At this time, Tang Zhou knelt on one knee and carried the RPG rocket launcher on his shoulder. When the first experimental subject appeared in his field of vision, Tang Zhou calmly said, fire. With a bang, the grenade sprayed out from his shoulder. The power that burst out at that moment was like a roar from the gods, hitting hell vertically from the human world. Ren Xiaosu looked back and found that these soldiers of the Qing group had a unique calmness when facing life and death. It should have been a very touching scene, but the other party did not act pretentiously, as if they had done something insignificant. Luo Lan was dragged onto the off-road vehicle by 2 soldiers, and then the off-road vehicle was ready to rush towards the 109th barrier. But at this moment, something strange happened. Ren Xiaosu suddenly saw that there were experimental subjects on both wings who had approached at some point, and there were as many as 8 or 9. These experimental subjects came around from the side of the Qing group's position, and 4 of them pounced directly at Tang Zhou from behind. At that moment, Ren Xiaosu knew that Tang Zhou and his men were finished. Chapter 125 10,000 years from now. Even though they had powerful thermal weapons, once the line of defense was broken by the experimental subjects, the combatants of the Qing group would have no chance of survival. Some soldiers shot at the experimental subjects, but they dodged quickly, and it was very difficult for the bullets to hit them. Suddenly, a wounded soldier suddenly jumped up and hugged the legs of an experimental subject, holding a grenade in his hand. With a bang, the wounded soldier and the experimental subject were blown away. Ren Xiaosu found that even the experimental subject could not withstand the power of the grenade. The 4 experimental subjects that rushed to the line of defense were immediately reduced to 3, which allowed Tang Zhou and the others to breathe. But what moved Ren Xiaosu the most was that the wounded soldier who was going to die was calm even before he died, without a sense of tragedy or heroic words, as if he was just going to complete a trivial task. Ren Xiaosu stopped watching, as the Qing group had left him with too many doubts. He looked at the remaining test subjects. One of them chased the SUV like lightning. In the process of running wildly, it actually crashed into the SUV with its body. When it collided with the SUV, Ren Xiaosu could even see the process of the body being squeezed and deformed. The next moment, the SUV flipped over as if it lost balance, but the test subject was fine. The test subject got up from the ground and shook its head, then jumped onto the body and began to tear the iron sheet outside the body, as if it wanted to dismantle the car directly. However, Ren Xiaosu could no longer care about this scene, because there were still 4 test subjects surrounding him, and they had already rushed towards Ren Xiaosu and the others. Ren Xiaosu shouted, "Chen Wudi, you go to the right." As soon as the voice fell, Ren Xiaosu's hand had already grasped the black knife in the void, and the black knife seemed to be pulled out of the void. In an instant, the black knife met the test subject that rushed from the left, and the body of the test subject was like tofu, and was cut in half by the black knife. Wang Fuge, who was in a panic, was suddenly stunned when he saw this scene. It turned out that Ren Xiaosu was really a superhuman. Whether it was Ren Xiaosu's speed or Ren Xiaosu's strength, it had long surpassed the scope of mortals. In fact, Ren Xiaosu was not very panicked when facing the experimental body, because he had fought with this thing before. Now there were 4 experimental bodies by his side, exactly the same as before, but this time there was Chen Wudi to help him share the pressure, and Ren Xiaosu didn't even need Shadow to participate in the battle. The only thing he was worried about was that Yan Liuan and others might be injured by mistake during the battle. After all, Yan Liuan and others had no power to fight back against the experimental body. In an instant, Ren Xiaosu raised his knife and cut off the waist of an experimental body. He shouted to Wang Fuge and others, "You run forward first." Whether it was Wang Fuge, Zhang Wu and her students, or even Yan Liuan, they were all frightened by the terrifying appearance of the experimental body. This experimental body clearly looked like a human, with the same nose, mouth, arms, and body as humans. But no matter from the behavior or the fear state, the other party was no different from a beast. Ren Xiaosu saw that they didn't react and yelled, "Run!" Yan Liuan was the first to react at this time. "Go, don't stay here and become a burden to my brother." Wang Fuge followed Yan Liuan and ran away, Yan Liuan's words still echoing in his mind. It seemed that in Yan Liuan's opinion, they could not help Ren Xiaosu at all, even if Wang Fuge and his men had guns. Ren Xiaosu was slightly relieved when he saw them start to run for their lives, but the crisis was not really resolved. You know, there are still many experimental subjects behind them who are temporarily intercepted by Tang Zhou and other soldiers of the Qing group, but their defense line has been broken through by the experimental subjects from the rear, and it is hard to say how long they can hold out. Seeing that Tang Zhou and his men's defense line began to loosen, the group of experimental subjects chasing after the refugees had already rushed into their formation. Ren Xiaosu frowned. Even if Tang Zhou and his men could hold on for a while, how fast could Sister Xiaoi and the others run? I'm afraid that everyone will not be able to run for long before they will be caught up by this group of experimental subjects. Ren Xiaosu looked at the remaining experimental subject. It seemed that its companion had just been killed cleanly, which made it hesitate. So it did not rush forward to attack again, but slowly retreated. Ren Xiaosu did not intend to tangle with it. He looked at Chen Wudi, and he was stunned by what he saw. The 2 experimental subjects Chen Wudi was facing were already lying on the ground, and Chen Wudi himself had one leg on the experimental subject and one hand casually carrying the golden hoop on his shoulder, looking very awesome. This surprised Ren Xiaosu. Because he did not block the bullet before, Ren Xiaosu subconsciously thought that Chen Wudi might not be that powerful. But now, the opponent's strength might be much higher than he thought. Unfortunately, he did not have time to pay attention to Chen Wudi's battle, so he could not make a detailed assessment. Chen Wudi said, "From now on, for 10,000 years, you will all remember my name. My name is..." Ren Xiaosu interrupted unhappily, "Stop wasting time." Oh, Chen Wudi's expression instantly drooped. Suddenly, Ren Xiaosu heard someone shouting something. The voice was a roar coming from the overturned off-road vehicle. At this time, Ren Xiaosu found that the experimental subject who had torn the iron sheet of the vehicle body had disappeared, and the off-road vehicle kept shaking. It seemed that the experimental subject had already entered the off-road vehicle. Save? Or not save? In the car sat Luolan from the Qing group, and the Qing group itself wanted to kill him. At this time, it was good enough for Ren Xiaosu not to attack Luolan. How could he save him? No, he could save him. But before saving him, Ren Xiaosu threw the experimental subject he had just killed far away. After all, the mark of being cut in half was too obvious. If Luolan saw it, Luolan would probably immediately realize that he was the one in Jingshan. Luolan didn't know how many experimental subjects there were outside anyway. Ren Xiaosu would tell him that there were only 2, and both were killed by Chen Wudi. After doing all this, Ren Xiaosu rushed up. He saw through the cracks in the car body that the car was full of blood. A fat figure was wrestling with the experimental subject in the car, but he was about to collapse. The fat figure was Luolan, and the other 2 people in the car were probably killed by the experimental subject in order to protect Luolan. The blood in the car came from them. At this time, Chen Wudi actually rushed over, grabbed the cracks in the car body with both hands, and tore the car apart with a muffled groan. "Do it," Ren Xiaosu said to Chen Wudi. After receiving the order, Chen Wudi picked up the golden hoop and smashed the head of the experimental subject from behind. The pale yellow blood splashed Luolan's face. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, Every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.